Game 4 of the 2018 World Chess Championship match, the first with an American player in decades. World number 1 Magnus Carlsen played a new opening against challenger Fabiano Caruana, but a slight hesitation on his part led to quick equality and so far the shortest game of the match. With a day to rest and the match still tied, the tension continues to build. Game 5 action live from London, coming up next.
Welcome to Today in Chess World Championship Edition, and as you see, we're in Sicilian Avenue right outside the venue in London as we see these two incredible men at the top of world chess facing off in a much anticipated match. We have American challenger Fabiano Caruana and the reigning king Magnus Carlsen. So far, the match is deadlocked with 4 draws. That's 2 points for Fabiano, who lives here in St. Louis where we were recording this show, and 2 points for Magnus. I'm Jennifer Shahade, and I'm here with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan to cover round 5 of what rates to be an epic match.
It certainly is shaping up that way. It's been fantastic all the way through. Game 1, we saw the best chances, and they belonged to Magnus Carlsen. But when Fabi saved that game, ever since, neither player has even come close to getting something serious against the other. And it's one of those things that with each progressive draw, the tension in the match really keeps ramping up and up. Almost a skins game is going on here from golf to chess. But let's take a look at our format and catch up with the play.
Well, here's the basic for those of you who are just joining us. This World Championship match is best of 12 games, so that's the first player who gets to 6.5 wins. We've got a luxurious 3-part time control, no draws before Black's 30th, and a prize fund of over €1 million.
And also keep in mind that 30-second increment. For every move you make, you get 30 seconds bonus on your clock. And that was crucial, once again, in that game 1, where Fabi was living on the increment.
That's right.
And our schedule, Jen.
Well, our schedule, we're in round 5 out of 12, as I mentioned. Take a look ahead and you'll see that for the Americans watching this, Turkey and chess, November 22nd, that's a Thursday, that's Thanksgiving. So you can argue with your family about nothing except for chess and whether you're on Team Magnus or Team Fabi. But
exactly.
I think most American families are on Team Fabi, right?
Of course, you got it. Yeah. And you'll only see the tie breaks on those days in case of a 6-6 tie.
That's right, November 27th. That would be the tie-break day if the match is indeed deadlocked. But I don't know. I mean, there's obviously the more draws we have, the higher that likelihood is. But exactly. I still really like Rex's prediction. He came on a couple of days ago and said 3 decisive games.
Right.
What's your feeling about when we're going to see that first decisive game of the match?
Yesterday. No, I had thought that by the 4th game, we would have seen our first for sure. I think that Rex was right in terms of his prediction of 3 decisive games. But boy, we're beginning to question that judgment with each passing draw, Jennifer.
Well, today we're going to get moved soon, but I would like to point out that normally we throw to Maurice at this point, but Maurice is still on his way back from New York City, where he was on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and boy, did he kill that interview. It was a great promotion for chess. He talked to Trevor about why chess is so, that was my favorite part, about why chess is so important for kids.
Exactly, and the training that goes into it, and you know, how a child changes. Maurice is a brilliant ambassador for chess. And Maurice was explaining that one of the things that he sees in children is they began to think about their opponent and elevate their opponent, because kids are all about themselves. I want this, I want that, I want
We're
that.
all about ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we kind of mature a little bit. I mean,
Some of us.
as a mommy, you understand who's boss in the house. But it was a brilliant performance.
Yes,
no,
it was.
No,
And
seriously, a great interview.
You can watch it on YouTube. It's quite funny as well. So anyway, the point is, Maurice will be a little late today because it's
Exactly.
actually like a beautiful snowy day here in St. Louis. But
White Christmas Day.
we're pleased to announce that Grandmaster Jesse Kraai will be filling in for the first couple hours.
Oh, brilliant.
Really a very interesting Grandmaster who's going to, I'm sure, bring lots of fascinating perspectives to this match and the 4 games that we've had so far.
Yes, I will look forward to him.
Another thing we're going to have for you in the hour is Christian Carrilla, who is part of Team Caruana, Grandmaster, recent cover star on Chess Life magazine for winning the National Open. Very popular guy here in St. Louis, where he's often a Grandmaster in residence and often does a piece for us, the Count's Corner. I think we have to ask him to pretend to do the Count's Corner in London.
I think you'd be under the gun there. I mean, as a member of Fabi's team, he certainly doesn't want to give anything away. And of course, we are today in chess, and we have World Championship also going on in the ladies in Canty-Mensons. They're down to their final 4. And the amazing thing, I think, about this final 4, Jen, is that 3 of the ladies are former world champions.
That's right. We've got Zhu Wenjun, reigning champ, Alexandra Kosteniuk, former champ, and we've also got Maria Muzichuk. So the last Muzichuk standing is also a former women's world champion. Her sister Anna, who's actually even a little bit higher rated than Maria,
right,
was knocked out by Kosteniuk in the rapid playoff. And then Katerina Lanyo, very high rated, but has not been champion herself. But in a way, the surprise in a 64-player knockout like this is that there aren't really any surprises. You usually expect that an underdog slips through due to the crazy hectic schedule.
Exactly.
But here the cream is rose to the crop.
To the very top. Tippy top. Absolutely.
Let's take a quick run through of these great players. Well, we've got reigning world champ Grandmaster Zhu Wenjun, 27 years old, from China. She's part of the women's Olympic team that won gold medals this year. And she's also played in some of the winter classics, or just the classic norm tournaments here in St. Louis. So it's nice to see her face in the quartet potential champions. Alexandra Kosteniuk has also played here in St. Louis.
Numerous times, actually.
Alexandra, great ambassador for the game. She won the Women's World Championship almost a decade ago. And a few years before that, she was actually vice champion when she was still a teenager. So she's still quite young, but she's been around for a while fighting for this title.
It feels like it. What a great veteran she is. And then another former world champion.
That's right, the 2015 Women's World Champion, one of the famous sister duo, Muzichuk. Despite being the lower rated of the two, she has the chance to actually claim 2 world championships before her sister. So something for everybody to brag about in this family as.
Exactly, a very, very accomplished family indeed.
And finally, we have Katerina Lano, 28 years old, from Russia, very high rated. We see 25.56, probably one of the highest rated players, female players who never won the Women's World Championship.
Exactly.
Except, of course, the one and only Judith Polgar,
sure,
who has never won because she never played.
Right.
But I think Katerina is also among the top rated.
And kind of a second win for Katja, because you see there she had some really wonderful successes in the early 2000s as the European champion. And now, you know, this is a real opportunity to, but look, we've got to say hi to Jesse.
That's right. Grandmaster Jesse Kraai is joining us in a surprise. Hello.
Yeah, you know, I woke up this morning like every other chess fan. I had some coffee, a little breakfast. I had all my screens, and I was just, oh, this is going to be a great game. I'm just going to sit here and watch it. And then I got a call that Maurice is not coming in, and they said, can you work Maurice's big machine? And it's kind of intimidating to even touch this thing, because I think Maurice is the only one who knows how to drive it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of fill in.
Well, look at this
Brilliant,
game,
Jesse.
Jesse. We've got moves. We've got
Beautiful
another
game.
We've got another Rasalima, you know, considering that Fabi did not get anything from the first two whites, or especially the first white.
Right.
I was thinking that he might differ, and Kramnik had a similar opinion.
Right.
But here we go. He's going for the Rasalimo again. But what's different, Jesse?
Well, let's start right here, right? Actually, this position, G6.
Right.
So when Yasser and I were kids, the idea of just hacking immediately on C6 just didn't seem to make much sense. Like, why are you doing it unprovoked? The knight's not hurting anybody.
Right.
So that became like really fashionable for decades, and that's been going on for a while. And Fabi played that way the first time. Now, let me just say, also when me and Yasser were kids, this move, the wing gambit,
Yes.
was very popular, and I like it, honestly. It's very dangerous. You can also kind of do it against the French sometimes. Like, you can do it like E6, D4, D5, and then excuse me, I blew it already. E6, let me take this move back. E4, E6, how does it go? Knight F3, D5, E5, C5, and
now
B4.
Yeah.
And in both cases, what you're trying to do is steal the black center pawn. And especially in a position like this, you really see that you can play A3 or D4 now, is that it will be impossible for black to get his counterplay against the D4 square. So that's kind of like the positional basis for this wing gambit that we have here. And I don't think this has never been seen in World Championship chess, so I'm really excited about this game. A huge advantage to Fabi to play a dynamic move like this because, you know, you can do the computers, but you can also play it out with your team and see what are the human moves, what are the typical things humans are going to do with this, and then check that against the engines. So I'm really excited about this game going forward. So far, the most exciting opening of the match.
No question about that. I recall very vividly the 1992 match. It was a rematch, actually, between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky from Sveti Stefan and Belgrade. And it was game 11 where Bobby played this B4, but I just can't recall offhand if it was the exact position.
What a terrible memory you have, Yaz. You remember the match, the game, the date. That's amazing.
Yeah, but what I had for lunch was, I'm really confusing me right now. But okay, so we have a repeat of the Rasalima with bishop b5. And in the first two games, immediately there was this capture on c6. Bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and away we go. Game one was a terrible outing for Fabi. This time, he deferred the capture, castled immediately, and after bishop g7, rook e1. Again, deferring the capture. And just as Jesse was saying, this knight on c6 isn't scaring anybody. If the knight wants to move to d4, that's okay. We'll just trade. And why did you move the same piece twice? So Magnus wants to get back into his usual routine with the move e7, e5. He's basically saying, go ahead, please, hurry, hurry. Please make this trade, and let's get back into the lines of play that I've analyzed. Now this, for me, is a real stunning gambit move. Like I say, and as Jesse was saying, the wing gambit, this move b2, b4, is known in a number of openings. Even like I'm going to say an Evans gambit, you know, you throw out a b4 shot. Now here, I think it's extraordinarily courageous considering 4 draws and, you know, what kind of preparation has to you go through this. You sit down with your team and say, okay, guys, you know, like, am I going to go for it? Do you really want me to put my whole world championship ambitions on a wings gambit? Is this the thing to do? And your teammates all, you know, gleefully nodding their heads.
Well, this makes me really excited to talk to
Suck it,
Christian.
yeah, you suck it up and you go, okay, let's do it. Now let's try to figure out what it is that Fabi has anticipated. And I think we have knight takes d4 on the board, right? Knight takes b4 on the board. So, I mean, well, what's it all about? It's about, you know, trying to take advantage of your superior development and rip open the position. So something as natural as c3, let's say, right? Knight's got to drop back. I don't really see any choice. And it's all about opening up lines. d2, d4.
This reminds me of like some game that, some really famous game that Judith Polgar played in 1988 in the Olympiad that she won with her sisters.
Right, in Thessaloniki.
Yeah, where she like played.
The Sicilian.
Yes, where she played like the Queen takes F8 move at the end.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to, when she's doing commentary in London with Anna Rudolph, if they're mentioning that game, because
it's beautiful.
It reminds me of that where she won a brilliant sacrificial game. It was similar structure. It was also like a Rasalimo with E5 and C5.
Right.
And a move like D4 and E5.
Right.
So to kind of further the point, you're saying that after, for instance, C takes D4 here.
Right, C takes D4. Here I got to pause because
Bishop
moves like
A3.
Bishop A3 come to mind. I probably take it nonetheless. Also, I just wanted to point out, if you take this pawn,
E5 is such a great move. Yeah.
I would love, when I was a kid, I loved the Max Lang attack, and I loved the Danish Gambit. Okay, the Danish Gambit, where you sacrifice all kinds of pawns for fast development. And in a Danish Gambit, this pawn on c5 would never be on c5. It'd be on the much better square c7. So this would be a huge, huge advantage for white. So now the question is, after d4, and I'm going to turn it over to Jesse for his thoughts, but after d4, what's, as black, you're looking for safety, Jesse. What's the safest way to play this game?
That's right, and in that line is very typical of what the kind of thing we're going to be looking at here. And let me just back up and let's show people the Evans Gambit traditional position.
From the very get-go.
From the very get-go. This is popular in the 1800s.
Do it from move one, E4, E5, Jesse. Please.
Yeah, E4, E5.
So everybody's with this. Okay, so
Knight
this is
F3.
the standard, most standard defense. Yeah.
So this is the greatest, this is the most old-fashioned, principled way to play b4 in any of these things. Gary's played this move along with all these other old world champions, and it's going to be interesting for our game to think about. What do you get with b4? Well, you get time, right? And now we're going to hit him with c3, and we're going to get time, and there's many different moves that black can play here, but we want to play d4, and we want to bust open in his center before he gets a chance to develop. That's the key idea. Now, in some ways, I think what you can say, this position has been analyzed a lot, maybe about roughly equal. But the position Fabi has, I think, is better. And let's just contrast it for a second. When we go back, let's start at the beginning to this move here. Black has wasted a tempo with e5, a tempo with obviously e5 still there, but g6. Is the bishop really correct on g7? Doesn't look like it, right? So for all these reasons, this looks like a better version. And so instead of in the Evans where he takes with the bishop, it's very similar. You take with the knight, okay? Now we get this development move, bishop b2, here. So c3 can still come. We still want to do the same idea, which is to bust open the black position. Here's where it's going to get really wild, though.
Okay.
Magnus says, I want to take you out of your preparation and play this funky move, a6. And Fabi said, you know what? I'm still in my prep. I'm still in my prep, buddy. We did this. We did this all night long, and now a3. So it is, I think, a better version. And if I'm not mistaken, like the problem is, like you go back knight c6. I think then we take it, and then we can take e5. Why not?
We win our pawn back. We're super happy.
And we're up in development. The whole thing looks pretty good.
Right.
If you play AB,
attacking the rook.
This doesn't look good. That, again, kind of like the wing gambit that we first showed in the Sicilian, that c5 pawn doesn't really want to move out of the center. So this is a terrible position, I think.
We'll continue the line for a second. We would see a trade of rooks for sure. And just go ahead and take that pawn on b4 and explain to our audience why you think those triple pawns are terrible.
Yeah. So we can ignore those pawns. They're not going anywhere. We can snatch them up anytime. And here you have very pleasant choices between things like knight takes e5 and even maybe d4. But knight takes e5 is a simple way that you might have to be careful with
Maybe
knight
And it
takes
bishop
looks like,
takes e5
by the way, it looks
because
like
of
A takes
d6.
B5 was played.
Right, so let's look at this is coming fast and furious, and let's
Wow.
go to the game position.
Yeah.
My instinct was that A takes B5 was not correct.
A takes B5, A takes B4, both on the board now.
Yeah. So we are going to get this. I think this is not only better for white, but this is a position where black can really have an accident.
Hashtag Team Fabi.
Right. Because those pawns in the B file are going to fall, and we're up so much time in this position. Black needs to play knight f6 and castles, and in the meantime, he also has to play d6 at some point to
Right.
get out his bishop. We have a huge time advantage, and in that time advantage, we can decide to win the e5 pawn. We can decide to go after the b pawns. It's going to be a luxury choice, as we like to say, right? A choice where we have many different plans where we can do things where we have there's no danger for white. There's no danger for white.
Oh, no danger for white. I agree wholeheartedly, Jesse. One of the things that's been happening in this match is these guys, their defensive ability is so extraordinary, they keep shutting each other down. So continue your analysis, if you will.
Right.
Rook takes a1.
Right.
Bishop takes a1. You're very, very pleased with white. I get it. But go ahead and play the position after d6.
Now, I'm happy
Sorry,
you
please.
said that,
Yeah.
Yasser, because I was like, Yasser's a pawn grubber, but not c takes b4.
Not no.
That's the limit of the pawn grubbing for Yasser.
Exactly.
So he's going to play d6, and that's got to be the right move.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
That's gotta
that
be
looks
the
a
right
lot
move.
more attractive for
And,
sure.
and one thing that we saw a little bit in the last variation is it might be a little difficult for us to actually snip on e5, but I don't think so. So for example, takes. If we play knight takes, we have to worry about the pin.
Exactly.
Right? We can play bishop takes, though, and is that what we want? I assume
Well,
so. Why
Yeah,
not?
Bishop takes.
Let's look at it.
You were saying that black needed to play knight f6 and get out of dodge as well.
Right.
So go ahead, knight f6, with or without the bishop trade, by the way. But go ahead, knight f6, and if black, it's so annoying if he just gets in one or two moves.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's
that single opportunity of advantage could slip away.
let's
so
develop
fast.
with attack. Right. That's
Okay,
what they
that's
told
a good
me.
move.
They told me to develop with attack when I
that-
was a kid.
That was in our opening books, all right. So if we defend the pawn with bishop to d7,
I assume something like knight c3 is going to come.
exactly.
There's even moves like queen e3. Oh, that's interesting. Hitting the
Now,
pawn and maybe touching h6.
That's the annoying. Then
Yeah.
I've got a real
Oh.
problem. Now I'm in trouble,
Yeah.
and I don't like it. If you would take the position back before the move bishop takes e5, Jesse,
Yeah.
you as white had just recaptured your pawn.
Yeah, feels
There's
good.
no question you've got
Yeah.
an edge.
Yeah, feels real
My
good.
only question is how big is it? Go ahead, play bishop takes e5 if you will, please.
Right.
And this time, knight f6 immediately. No trading the bishop. So again, black is one move away from saying, "I'm untouchable. I'll castle and I'll be safe." So how do you increase your initiative?
And one thing I think we should say that's kind of interesting about this position is the other games with the Rosalimo, blacks, the compensation for his troubles was that he had an unopposed light square bishop.
Right.
And he still has that in this position. So I think the way black could think about it is to say, all right, even if this gets really bad and I even lose a pawn, as long as the position opens up and that bishop turns into a hero, then I have some chances.
Because it has some time to put pressure on with bishop g4. So suppose white plays d4 in this position.
Sure, you could d4 and
d4 try
and I love to develop,
Knight
so I would be
c3,
looking at one of these knight moves.
Right. Rip snarl.
Yeah,
terror.
knight c3 looks good. Knight d5 is possible as
And
well.
maybe even on knight c3, you don't even want, a human move would just be, I'll castle, you can have my pawn, and let's play a game where I have that unopposed bishop, and it'll then become a technical challenge. I mean, white has to be very happy with the opening if it goes that way,
Absolutely.
right? But it will become a technical challenge at that point.
And by the way, we do have D6 and D takes C5, and B takes C5 rather. So
the players
it looks like we might find
catching up to us.
This game on the board.
Yeah, the players are catching up to us. We've seen that rook trade, and we're anticipating the recapture. And this is where Jesse has been playing bishop takes E5. Well, you also mentioned ideas of knight A3 and knight C3, but I like restoring the material equality. And after knight F6, so we're looking at takes on C5, Jesse.
And I want to point out,
please.
like, we immediately took back on C5, maybe a little hasty.
Okay.
And black should definitely consider playing knight E7. The drawback there is then your B pawns are permanently weak, but you are saving time, right? And you're not going to lose the E5 pawn directly.
Well, you're one move closer to castling.
That's right. You're one move closer to castling.
And you're thinking about playing F5, as
Right.
you point out, bringing that bishop into nice concert with the rook on F8.
Right.
But
So-
there's a problem after knight E7, isn't there? Can't I be my pawn grabbing best? Queen E2, a move Jesse pointed out a moment ago as well. Jesse, you're saying those
Because we can't
B
do bishop
pawns.
D7 because of takes on D6 all of a sudden.
Exactly.
Right?
You're saying those B pawns, double B
Ooh, that's
pawns
a
are
nasty
vulnerable.
move.
Right.
That
But-
might be hurtful.
But this one, I
Hurting
think you have,
feelings all over the
Your
world.
hurt feelings.
the knight on B1's greatest fear in life, though, is to see the pawn appear on B4. And I think on Queen E2, you got to worry about B4 because then the knight can't move. And the genius then of the knight E7 is he's dominated at the moment with the pawn on E4, but he's dreaming of coming to C6. Right? That's that knight's dream.
Ooh, this is what Yaz likes to call a 3 results game.
I'm not sure. I
No,
like
no.
White's initiative. I really, really do.
You
I
think
mean,
that-
I mean, the question is, you know, when White went for this from the very, very start, he was in this gambit mode of.
And knight
I
E7
want-
was played, by the way.
Right.
So we've
Right.
seen knight E7 on the board, so we'll see if this Queen E2 or takes on D6 is played.
Right,
But as you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, but White was in this gambit mode of look.
If you want to update your position. to the-
Sure.
Yeah.
This is the position at the moment. I want to exploit a lead in development, right? So in this line that we were just looking at, and Jesse was explaining that the nightmare scenario for the knight on B1 is that it would remain forever hampered. Here, after this move D4, it's like I'm purposefully trying my best to explode the position as quickly as possible to exploit whatever lead I have in development. Is it, you know, a serious concern or not? And that's where it takes calculation, and that's, by the way, where the engines can really be of help.
Sure. Though I think the human move, you know, it's funny that, you know, Yasser likes to talk about grabbing pawns. He's out there sacking all of Fabi's pawns. What's
Yeah,
he
right,
doing?
yeah.
Because the easy human move after knight E7 is say, let's bring the dog in and see what happens.
Right.
You know, let's bring it in. I think, you know, the problem is going to be, well, Black has many problems here. He has to decide which pawns he wants to defend and which ones he wants to give up in order to castle.
That's right.
Right.
And the Queen
Right.
E2, B4, by the way, has been played.
Oh.
And considering the fact that Magnus is obviously caught unawares, it seems like he's playing relatively quickly, while Fabi, by contrast, is playing instantly, I think. And that is...
Here's the question for the
Yeah.
panel. How much of this is preparation of Fabi's?
100%.
100%.
100%.
The question is
Everybody
when-
thinks it's 100%.
When will it end?
When
That's the
will
question,
the,
right?
when will
And
the
I think that's because as
preparation
on
have been
Twitter,
completed?
US Chess tweeted some pictures of Magnus at the board and all of his
Yeah.
expressions. You know, Magnus is turning out to be like more like Gary Kasparov than we might have originally thought.
I remembered the
And, like,
California
these
cool.
faces,
Really?
he has like some awesome facial expressions. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
people who are following along. Jesse pointed out that when he watches, he has us on one screen, he has Sese on another screen.
That's the big
And-
computer, the best neural computer super
Right,
And
right.
we have-
in the world.
We have one comment that Magnus has played all of Sese moves so far. So I don't know. Obviously,
Wow.
obviously I don't imagine he had this all prepared. But he's just
No.
instinctively and calculating everything correctly. Despite that, how extraordinary is that?
That's extremely impressive. One of the things is it's so very hard to catch these guys unawares. Why? Because that's all they do is they prepare their opening to great lengths. So this move B4, I thought, man, that's a really courageous move. And the idea of catching Magnus unaware, and then he turns around and he throws the very best counter blows at you, Jesse.
But we have
That's
another
a little
move, Yaz, which also looks like
annoying.
preparation because it was
What's
played
that?
quickly.
After Queen E2.
After Queen E2, B4 was also played.
Oh, that's also
And now we
played.
have Queen to C4 on the board.
Oh man.
So that was not what we were
Whoa.
looking at.
A little sly nuance there. Not the Queen B5 check that was the knee-jerk move, but Queen C4.
Say hello to my preparation.
Say hello to my Jesse, talk about that move for a second. Was that in the engine's choice, top choice?
Well, you know,
as you
I
were?
believe the engine. If I was, we
If
didn't
you
give
were
it that
to
much
ask
time.
the engine, yeah.
So the
The
idea
engine
for-
didn't like Queen E2. The
It
engine
did not.
didn't like
Okay.
Queen E2, but I think we're going to know when Fabi is out of his prep when he actually takes time to think.
Okay.
Because in any of these positions, you could say to yourself, if you're white, and you're like, this is great. This is as good as it's going to get, and now I'm going to find my plan, my way through this forest. And at some point, he is going to do that, for sure. But at the moment, we are playing very quickly. And you know, Fabi, oftentimes when we look at the computer with his prep, it's not what the computer recommends.
Right.
He has his own way of dealing with the computer and helping the computer find its own dangerous moves. Let me get an update here.
And Queen E2, by the way,
Queen
so the
E2,
idea is that
B4.
the kind of annoying attacking move, Bishop E6, met by Queen B5 check, and suddenly the pawn on B7 is hanging. But what about the pinning move, Queen C7, just attempting to regain C5? Oh, you have just Queen takes B4 there, or?
I'm still coming to grips with it myself.
Yeah, it's a weird move.
But sorry, Jesse, just for you to kind of finish your thought, was Queen C4, or first of all, you're saying Queen E2 really wasn't on
Wasn't
the
the top
computer's
choice.
horizon.
Also, I don't feel it's. I was about to say it wasn't the human move, but Yasser played it because he wanted to grub the.
I did. I mean, I'm a card carrying
But
member.
Yaz is not a typical human.
Wait, what are you
so-
talking about? I'm the
Alien.
most human on the planet, please.
So Knight C3 felt very human, even though it was the computer's move. Let me just say something totally obvious. I'm sure everyone knows this already, but I just want to say it. In all the other games, Black won the preparation battle.
Absolutely.
And now, by playing this offbeat thing, Fabi has won it. And now it's suddenly on White's terms. And that's one of the ingenious things. Like, even if we thought this was a slightly incorrect opening, in a way, it's still a very potent way to play chess. Just get a position that you've analyzed and your opponent doesn't know. It is a brutal situation, and it's terrifying for the other person because they feel like, and Magnus really has this fear of not playing Fabi, but playing Fabi's machine.
Exactly.
Right? Now imagine, I would love to play Maurice some blitz games, but do I want to play him with his machine? No, I don't want any part of that. Right? Yeah. Now I just want to be honest. I do not understand, just by looking at it firsthand, what Queen C4 is about, what Queen E2, Queen C4. When I look at the position, I'm really concerned about my knight on B1. But I think Yasser's got, and the other thing, when I was looking at Yasser's variation with Queen B5, the knight at least had a dream of playing D4, knight D2, knight C4.
Precisely.
And here I don't know what the knight on B1's dream is.
Yet.
Right. We're going to find out. To me, I haven't looked at the computer, but the natural human move would be knight C6.
Right.
That would be the natural move to me. And here, let's look at what the computer says.
Okay.
The computer is saying D4.
As before, but
Yeah.
not
So
again.
Yasser is a pawn grubber, but look at this. He knows these ideas, right? E takes D4,
Right.
and then knight takes D4.
Right.
And it's kind of a hassle. Right, this is kind of a hassle.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at what he says. Well, first of all, let me just see what's wrong with the natural castles.
Right.
We're going to
will
snip
take on
everything off, right?
Right.
Everything's going to come off.
And we grab a pawn.
We grab a pawn.
And our knight on B1 now has beautiful
Yeah.
entry into the
We
game.
need to kill the pawn on B4. That guy has to go.
And
So-
that's what that did.
So that's a useful human variation just to see what's going on.
Right.
Of course, Magnus is thinking about knight c6.
Because okay, take the move knight c6 back for just a second. And Jennifer had a very intriguing suggestion that I really hadn't considered. I was kind of like you, let's get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
She said, well, queen c4 strange, let's try to turn the tables on white. Play the move queen c7 and pin that pawn to white's queen. How does the engine deal with that move?
You got to get rid of this pawn.
Right.
And then I'm assuming pawn takes.
Right.
Now, if you played queen takes, then the pawn on e5 would fall.
Clear.
Right? So the beast says, check to the miserable king.
Okay, I gotta
and the thing you got to worry
check.
about now is another nasty check here.
I got to block the check again as well, yeah.
And then he says, time for the knight. Time for the knight.
This feels like a comfortable position for white.
Yeah, it feels like it's scary for black
position.
too, that if you mess something up. Now knight b5 is a threat, queen c6, there's knight a7.
But this is to Jesse's point that, and I think especially it was game 2 where Magnus was really worried that he would be playing against Fabi's computer, his team, and he wanted to avoid preparation, so he didn't play that move knight d2. Remember, that was that rook d8 game, and the Queen's Gambit declined, which you poo-pooed as a terrible move by Fabi. But it's really, really true at the World Championship level how, you know, preparation with the chess engine has really gone to great depths.
Right.
I'll put it like that.
Right.
We didn't see the move queen a5, did we?
No, and no one would. This is truly a madman's move, and let's think about it just before we get into the engine, because it's about to get really hairy, right?
Okay.
So the bishop on a1 is hanging. The
Exactly.
pawn on d6 is hanging.
Right.
And so when you think about it, well, this is the natural move, and now you're going to have to do something fancy to get out of that. And I think the fancy that he has planned is to develop the bishop here. However, look at how, I don't know. It's getting kind of spicy here. Definitely. You know, I don't know how I feel about this kind of thing. The computer thinks maybe, you know, it's just a slight advantage for white, which is amazing.
How's that?
Trade queens?
You know, maybe Carlsen had something like this truly, like, prepared.
Or looked at something
It's hard
similar.
to imagine. Or looked at something similar, because these moves are coming fast.
Mix up lines?
It's so specific is the position, though.
Yeah. Jesse, what was the thought there, yeah?
Well, right, it felt like he was thinking, and it just doesn't feel like something you'd prepare for. Actually, famously, I think it was Fiedler beat Kasparov in this bishop b5 thing.
Right.
And Kasparov said something like, well, why would I ever prepare for that?
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
and this is even on a whole nother level. And in a way, though, it can make a certain amount of sense, because Magnus before was always playing e4, e5, and now he's going to switch. And so his team's going to be like, we're going to cover all the sidelines. Right. So something like this, you know, it wouldn't have been as in his mind as it is for Fabi, who's just looked at it. Maybe he looked at it a month ago or a week ago, something like this. But he's some kind of memory, because this looks very tricky. This is definitely accident territory.
To play queen a5 quickly, as Magnus has played.
Magnus has done it.
Yeah,
I thought this was a side variation, because this is a tightrope. This is double edged. Okay.
And this is cool. The mainstream news is actually following the games, Yaz. KMox St. Louis says, after 4 straight draws, St. Louis and Fabiano Caruana lands a surprise blow in the early stages of Game 5.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's just sort of like Walter Cronkite stopping the nightly news to say, enough about Vietnam. In Reykjavik, Bobby Fischer has used the Queen's Gambit decline to take an early lead in the game.
And they got it right. I mean, you got to give credit to mainstream journalists.
When they get it right, it's amazing.
It sounds like a chess player wrote that tweet. So I'm like, okay, kudos.
Yeah. Okay, so Queen a5, Jesse.
And let me try to say something about this variation that I think is what Magnus sees, because I don't know what else to do for white. You take the pawn. Right. This bishop is forced. Now remember, your bishop over there is hanging.
I beg your pardon. Why
Yeah.
is the bishop move forced? Why
Bishop
can't
E6?
he? Why can't he just move his knight? Let's say.
Okay, okay, I take it back. You could play the knight move.
I mean, who's gambiting now? I mean, we went from a pawn down for white because
Whoa, look at that move.
the bishop's still hanging. But yeah, oh, I see. You want to go d5?
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
This is. I don't think this is what you. I just thought. Because I'm not a grubber. I was just like bishop e6 has got to be the move. But yes, this maybe he's thinking about this. What I was gonna say though, Yasser, is with bishop
Please.
e6.
Yes.
What you can force as black, I think,
Yes,
is you
please
can
do.
force an endgame. And some,
Which is a nice bailout. Whenever you can force an ending, you kind of feel better about yourself.
Now this looks very dangerous for black, and just first blush, I have no idea what's going on. But notice, the pawn is still on b4.
Okay.
As long as the pawn on is still there on b4, black can endure a lot of suffering
Right.
because that knight is like out. And the bishop
Exactly.
on a1 is honestly also a little shut out.
Right.
So not so simple to see how to play this particular position, even though, obviously with this beautiful pawn you're doing great, but you've got two pieces that are poor. And this would be hard to play. Like the engine wants to do rook d1. That's kind of hard to find.
That is obscure, isn't it?
And then you're doing your move, d4.
Ah, that's what he
That's
has
the
in
idea.
mind.
Yeah.
King to d7, d4.
Right.
Whoa. Well, this is amazing stuff.
And Fabi has taken the pawn on d6.
That's the question, Jennifer. Did he capture? He did indeed. So the current position is, in fact, this one. After queen a5, attacking the bishop, Fabi ignored the attack to the bishop, play takes. And now, basically, Magnus has one of two moves only. The bishop e6 move, the
Right.
one you were advocating for, Jesse,
Right.
or knight c6.
Knight
Engine's
c6.
choice is?
Is bishop e6. Yeah.
By far, like it's not even close kind of thing, or is it a
Yeah.
close call? I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes the engine is like that,
Yeah.
right? It gives you two possibilities, and it weighs them equally well.
Right.
valued.
I think knight c6 is insane.
Insane.
Insane to do that.
Well, tell us what you really think. Don't hold back. This is Today in Chess. You can bring it.
Yeah.
Well, what a game so far, guys.
Yeah.
Fabi
Wow.
finally getting an exact position, it seems, from his preparation and putting Magnus to the test. But Magnus has played bishop to e6 relatively quickly. And indeed,
Okay.
considering...
So, insane is not on tap today. Not this morning.
And Yasser, let me just get your personal,
Please,
human
please,
take
sure.
on this endgame position that we're getting.
Yes.
Let's say we get this position. It seems kind of
Exactly.
forced at the moment,
Right.
So with human eyes, as white, I'm a little concerned
For who?
for white
Oh, for white.
because I don't see, it seems this is the things that I fear. I
You're
fear like
concerned
I'm going to
white
lose.
won't win?
I'm going to lose my c7 pawn.
Okay.
Right? And my b1 knight is terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to lose my big trump on c7, and
Mm-hmm.
then how do I go from there?
Right.
And even, if I find, I'm sure a human is going to find something like the rook d1, d4 thing, but then my c2 pawn is weak. There's other problems just positionally. So I'll ask you, just what's your human take on just looking at this position?
Well, exactly. Well, first of all, to echo what you're just talking about there, one of the things that I was really, really shocked as I became a much better player, and I played against my first grandmaster, and I was really intent on getting into the head of the grandmaster to understand how he thinks versus how I was thinking. And what you just articulated, Jesse, was a whole series of worries.
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm worried that the pawn on b4 is keeping my knight at bay. I'm worried that the bishop is artificially isolated. I'm worried that, wait a minute, if I lose this pawn on c7, maybe the pawn on c2. And that's how grandmasters think.
Right.
They worry about, like what could go wrong.
Right.
So the first thing I wanted to say is that when my opponent surprises me with a move like b4, what Fabi has, and I find a way to steer it into an endgame, it's like, I feel relieved that, like I'm not getting crushed. Okay. So it's very, very clear that black is not in danger of getting crushed anymore. And then the question is, can white actually achieve an advantage? And for all of the things that you've just articulated, I was about to say if I was white, I'd start to pull the emergency cord myself. I'd start thinking, not necessarily about rook d1 and d4, but something like knight g5, king d7, because you mentioned it, grandmasters hate to play against the two bishops, especially in open position. So I might take the bishops off. But having said that, I'm giving up what I would think would be hopes of an advantage.
Right.
So this is just extraordinary to me that despite being unpleasantly surprised, Magnus has steered the game very, very well. And by the way, what is the current position? Is it
Bishop e6.
Bishop e6 and a stop right here? This is what we have. Jennifer?
Yeah, that's where we are.
Is
So
there an
queen-
alternative to
The queen
c7?
c7?
I don't. Where else would you go?
Well, you got the engine.
Well,
dude.
look at it. Where are you going to go?
I mean, you know, I would
Because the
retreat
bishop-
the queen.
The
if
bishop
I-
on a1's hanging.
Bishop a1 hanging.
But there's a
yeah.
pawn on
okay, so you're
e7
saying like
here.
queen,
There's
so,
a knight on
So what are you
e7
saying,
hanging.
queen d3?
Okay, fine.
So that you're
that's a move.
threatening after queen a1, after takes on e7, you're threatening just checkmate.
Okay, well, I mean, if you want to take the bishop, sure.
Now after taking on e7,
I'll threaten the checkmate. And knight c3 will be a tempo. So I reckon you're probably going to
move the
knight.
knight. Yeah, instead
Okay.
of taking. Okay, so,
So
go knight c6 for
Knight c6, for instance. And okay, my bishop really is genuinely threatened now. And golly, I don't like this move.
Yeah, I really don't want to do
I
it.
don't really want to do that. Too many.
Even queen
things.
a2 there. You're going to go
Yeah.
bishop c1?
Yeah. There's a disturbance in the force.
Right,
Okay,
right,
this is
right.
not the harmonious stuff that Fabi wants. I kind of reckon queen c7 is forced.
Right.
I don't think there's a real, genuine alternative, and that's when we get this ending. This is where the computer likes rook d1 and d4 and massive swap, trades. Maybe white could even start with c3, but I think we can talk about more of an equal position than advantage white.
And let's just actually keep that c3 move on the board there,
Okay,
just for a
please,
second.
because that's a kind of a human move, if you will.
Because it highlights another worry of mine, and that is
Please.
that the unopposed light square bishop is just going to dominate all my stuff. And when you play c3, you know, you weaken the light squares.
Especially b3 and c4, and maybe in a worst case scenario, d3.
In fact, he might just play b3 there, right? Just, let's keep that pawn, maybe.
Well, but okay, for the moment, the c7 pawn still lives.
Right.
I mean, don't let that pawn remain on the board too long.
Right.
because
So yeah, b3 is probably too much.
too ambitious. Yeah.
But the thing is that all those light squares are weak. In another variation, let's say he plays this rook d1 move, just for a second.
You want
right?
me to go back, not to play the move c3?
Right, c3 does. We can look at c3. It doesn't feel right to me though, with the weakening of the
rook
light
to
squares.
d1, yeah.
That now
That's
you also
the
have to
computer's
worry.
Suggested move, yeah.
Right, you're also going to have to worry at some point of bishop g4, and isn't that going to be annoying? Either now or later. It's like, oh man.
In games 1 and 3, games 1, we saw Fabi playing h3 because he was worried about bishop g4. In game 3, bishop g4 actually appeared on the board.
That's right.
And there was a trade on the f3 square. Here, bishop f3 has even more to be said for it. But wait a minute, there's c8 equals queen, so bishop
So not
here
right,
doesn't
not right
work.
away. You're going to have to play king d7 first.
Because this would be highly embarrassing.
Yeah.
You
That's a
know,
good one.
I mean, to allow the pawn to promote with check.
Hey,
that
no
would-
in-between moves.
Yeah.
But one variation could be like king d7,
Yes.
d4, and
Yes.
then a simple move like bishop g4.
Really?
I think so.
Oh my word.
So really, here's a strategy for black to
Okay.
say, I want to get rid of all of your pretty pieces and leave you with the bishop on, or the knight on b1 and the bishop on a1. I just want you to get rid of all that stuff. My rook's coming into a8. My king's going to take your pawn. You know, for example, let's just, you could play d5, you could play de, but let's just look at the pawn grubbing move. De,
Exactly.
king takes. I'd rather be black now. Now I'd rather be black because this rook's coming to a8 to talk to these terrible pieces in the terrible c2 pawn.
Just continue the position for a second.
Sure.
Knight b1 to d2. Let's get the pieces off the first ring.
Yeah,
first of all, I mean, you know, like let's do something good for white for a change.
So I can take the pawn if I want.
Right. You can recapture. No question about that.
Okay.
Bishop takes on e5. Now, I guess the consequences of knight e5, bishop d1, knight c6, there's rook
a8. That rook a8 is always beautiful.
That's your savior. Okay, but here, I'm thinking white's a little bit better. h3.
Okay,
like, go ahead and, you know, you said you wanted to leave me with the ugly pieces.
Yeah.
But right now, it's okay. I don't have too many uglies on the board. It's about...
Isn't your king ugly? Look,
Well,
compare it to my
I think,
beautiful king.
Well, it's one
compare
of the most beautiful pieces I've got, Jesse. You know, I mean, my monarch, if I don't have a monarch, I don't gonna have a game.
Yeah.
But okay, this is
better for black.
Well, at least it's not dead.
How does Magnus find all these moves, Yaz?
Right.
I'm
He's
so puzzled.
He's good.
I'm so puzzled between the two scenarios that he looked at maybe not this exact thing, but something similar, or maybe this exact thing, like, or that he's just coming up with all the best moves.
And I should say,
And, like,
this has
and
happened.
how?
Queen
Yes,
C7
it has.
has happened.
I've got a good
How?
story for you, but go ahead, Jesse.
Queen C7
happened.
has happened. And
It did.
so I think this is going to be a very difficult moment for Fabi, unless this is somehow prepped. I think it's a
Okay.
difficult moment because black is really close to being even better. He doesn't deserve to be better because our position's been so beautiful for so long. But this is the moment where, for example, in last game, game 4, Fabi had a very nice position and then drifted.
Okay.
Right? And I'm worried that there's going to be some drift here too. So this is a difficult moment with moves you could consider d4, rook d1. I hope he doesn't play h3, but that's a thought. He could play Yasser c3.
I like the c3 move.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, because you asked a very, very good question there, why does he find all these good moves? And I remember talking to Hendrik, the father of Magnus, and he was telling me the story, the very, very, very young Magnus, like, think a little bit toddler, 4, 5, 6-year-old Magnus, and he had gotten Magnus this kind of game set where it was countries of the world, a kind of a jigsaw puzzle, as well as the capitals of the world. And he thought, okay, this would be a game that Magnus could play for months and months and months and months, and you know, And Magnus kind of put it all together, and he said, I was bored. That, okay, give me another game. And I was like, no, this is really fun. And what Hendrik realized is that Magnus not only knew where the countries of the world belonged on the jigsaw map, but he also knew the capitals of the country. It's like it went into his head, and it just stayed there. And he said, oh dear, I've got an amazing son who has recall. And when you see these types of crazy positions with b4 and stuff like that, I remember a lot of Paul Morphy books, and they would show all of these old guys playing these crazy romantic attacking lines, right? Well, in truth, I soared to those games, but I forgot most of them. Like the immortal game, right? I mean, you kind of see it, and then you kind of like, could I replay it absolutely accurately if I was forced to? Maybe, but for the most part, you forget it. But Hendrik is basically saying, Magnus doesn't forget these crazy offbeat lines that he sometimes sees.
Exactly. An incredible memory. I mean,
right, and he's handled it.
So you think that he has seen it in
somewhere in the back of his head. It's there.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
it's
that makes
extraordinary.
because knowing that he's going to play with knight c6, looking at b4 at some point, and whether it was before this round or many weeks ago,
Right.
somehow something's very similar to this or this coming up.
Exactly.
So you think that's more likely than him just figuring it out all over the board?
Oh
And
yeah,
playing pretty
I don't see this as like improv. I mean, no, and especially the fact that he played it relatively quickly.
Especially since he can't think on Fabi's time because Fabi's playing instantly.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really a fascinating question.
It really is.
It begs the question then, though, if he does know this, why think for any time at all? Why not play as quickly as Fabi? Because he knows it, but it's not as crystal clear as Fabi since he was the one who was surprised.
Right. It's like one of those things where you kind of like, okay, I know what I'm doing, but still let me get into the zen of the moment. Let me make sure that my recall is accurate and everything else. This is not a position I would play quickly. By the way, Jesse, I do believe we have C2, C3 on the board.
Oh!
Trying to get rid of that B4 pawn, which you've been harping on.
Oh, I didn't like C3.
And it's been played.
It.
It's been played.
Oh, I had this whole variation, this whole computer thing where the white pieces made sense, and now C3 have. Well, we have to give you props there.
No.
That's C3 didn't feel right to me because of all those light squares.
Okay.
That's why it didn't feel right to me. I'm gonna guess.
You terrified me with that pawn on B4. I wanted to get rid of it. So I did it. So you reckon King D7? Let's get rid of the pawn.
Let's try this out, and then I guess White's going to activate the rook. Black's going to activate the rook. Bishop C3 is an ugly square, but I don't know where else you want to go, really.
Wow. You put me on the spot there for a second, because I'm debating between knight c3, actually, and even perhaps b5. But knight c3, you would take the pawn back on b4, I assume.
Let's look, yeah. And I think the drama, here's what I mean by the light squares, because this is an octopus square on d3.
Exactly. You put a knight there, you're
I don't want it. I don't want that knight coming into d3. That's too much.
Okay, but continue the line for a second.
Okay, sure.
Unfortunately, there's a back rank mate. I was thinking of rook on e1 to b1. And again, my pawn on c7 is still alive, yay.
And unfortunately, you're not threatening anything, though.
That's the problem because of my back rank problem, right? I have no... Well, maybe knight b5 is a threat?
You know, this is a computer move that, of course, I wouldn't have found it. But bishop c4, just ignoring everything and planning to play bishop d3 to make your rook move.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cruelty.
This is exciting. Okay, let's have some fun and continue the line.
Okay.
H4.
H4. Okay.
Luft. Give me Luft.
All right, octopus time.
Oh, no, you were supposed to put the bishop
well,
on D3.
If you made Luft, that was the idea. I'm going to play bishop d3.
Okay.
And the bishop is also controlling this knight b5 stuff.
Right.
And the knight is, like all these octopuses are really deadly because they take away your rook squares.
Yeah.
They're really cruel.
Okay, continue. Knight David 5. I guess you got to take... You can't let the pawn on c7 live.
Sure,
right.
We'll take it.
You better take that pawn
And then
on
we'll
c7.
dominate the knight.
Oh, you're not even going to take the pawn on c7. That's fantastic.
He's my friend. That guy's gone.
That guy's friendly. You don't even see that as an enemy in the game.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay. And here I'll give you kudos. Absolutely. I much prefer Black's position here.
Right. So I think, c3 is on the board. Magnus is thinking about it.
Right.
I'm gonna guess it. I'm gonna guess it's a first move. Well, I don't know. He did play it kind of quickly.
Okay.
He did. Maybe he just felt it had to be played. But those light scores really worry me.
And if I could ask the question, King David 7, and of course you saw instantly I took a pawn.
Yeah.
What about D2, D4 in that moment?
That's more to the spirit, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm thinking now as well.
We can take once. And why did I do it? You have these nice center pawns, but the pawn on b4 continues to dominate the poor knight. Rook a8.
Knight d2.
Knight d2, yeah. And since this pawn is pinned,
it's
you can't really do anything. So I don't know, just something like rook a2.
I can't play d5 because, like you're saying, the bishop on a1 lacks protection.
And this is a great example of the two bishops. They are so strong. It's also an example of a position where the black king is more active than his white counterpart. The black king is doing all kinds of cool stuff, and the white king is a victim. He owes us a tempo for a Luft move like Yasser made in the last variation. Right.
Wow, impressive stuff, Jennifer. Jump right in. Bail me out if you've got a good move, boy. I need a partner here. Jesse's taking me down.
So far we have C3 on the board, yeah.
C3 is on the board, yes, sure. Let me update my board. I apologize. And by the way, I think we have a result in the game between Zhu Wenjun and Kostyuk. I do believe that Kostyuk lost, but never mind. C2, C3. And this is where Jesse is saying, look, this move, King D7, essentially black is playing with an extra piece because this king is doing good things, including capturing a pawn. White's king is being a kind of like a helpless victim, and the rook is coming quickly to the A8 square. And here's our ladies' update, Jennifer.
And our update, indeed, Zhu Wenjun, who has not had to play a rapid playoff yet.
Wow.
That seems to be the big edge here, Yaz, that she defeated Kostyuk, no doubt exhausted from an epic rapid playoff yesterday against Anna Muzichuk.
Right.
I think that's just a huge edge, Yaz.
Of course.
We see that time and again. Zhu Wenjun beats Irina. And I'm not saying that
gets that free day.
She wouldn't be a favorite anyway. She is the highest rated player remaining.
And
but
the
it seems like
reigning
she keeps
women's
winning
champion.
the first game, too.
Right.
You know, that it's...
And in those matches where the nerves of those tie breaks can be so exhausting, I mean, that's all the difference. I mean, that can make the total difference as to who will win the competition.
And now we're taking a look at whether Fabi's going to go take some b4, play for d4.
We do have King d7.
Oh, okay, after c3, King d7, and yes, and now it's White's move
and
to decide
is
between
d4 or take some b4.
D4.
Mm-hmm.
But as we sink into this rich endgame that was well prepared by Fabiano Caruana and well met by Magnus Carlsen, we'll take a quick break and be right back with more from Today in Chess and our special guest, Grandmaster Jesse Kraai.
Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely amazing for the chess in the US. He came extremely close 2 years ago to winning, but Sergey played a great tournament and he also deserved it, and he played a great match against Magnus, but this time it's Fabiano's chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very exciting. It's the first time that the United States has had a challenger in over a generation. So the last challenger was Bobby Fischer. That was quite a while ago. It'll be pretty exciting to see if he could return the throne or if he can, you know, challenge Magnus and be able to win, because I would think Fabio Caruana has definitely had some very strong performances over the years. So, you know, he's definitely a very good challenger for Magnus.
I mean, Fabiano's been playing quite well, so he certainly has chances. I don't think he's anywhere near 50%, contrary to what he said. But that being said, Magnus, he hasn't been that impressive of late, and he also hasn't been playing that much. So it's hard to tell what sort of shape Magnus is going to be in. But I think more than anything, it's going to really depend more on the quality of Magnus's play than Fabiano's play. Because if Magnus plays up to the level that he's capable of, I think his odds are probably 85–90%. But that being said, Magnus, he's had some ups and downs, and certainly his match against Sergey was far tougher than anyone expected. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yes, of course I'm excited that like American player is playing now. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. You know, it will probably boost popularity of chess in America.
For the tournament, for the candidates tournament, I was predicting Fabiano. I was hoping Fabiano would win, and I was also predicting that he seemed the most likely. And yeah, obviously he played great. I'm really happy that there's an American playing for the World Championship, which I've never seen it in my lifetime. So it's going to be really exciting. Obviously it's tough. He's up against one of the best players in chess history, but I think if anyone right now has a chance, he's definitely one of the few guys who has a chance against Magnus.
I mean, it was amazing, personally for me, because I know Fabiano, and I was watching his game. I was following the tournament very closely. I was just glued to my computer watching the last game. Like, even though I knew he was winning until it was done, like, I just couldn't stop watching. I think it means a lot to the U.S. because it's been so long since we have someone competing for the World Championship title. I think it'd be amazing to have a world champion. There'd be a lot more interest. Hopefully there'll be a lot of more mainstream media coverage, so chess can become more mainstream, and people, I think Bobby Fischer is like a household name, so it'd be really nice for Fabiano to become a name that people, when you think of chess, you can say, oh yeah, Fabiano Caruana, he's either challenging the world champion or he's the new world champion.
I think it's great that he won the candidates and he's going to be playing for world chess champion, because like we haven't had an American like chess champion for a long time, so I think it'd be really nice to see someone from the US actually win the title, and it could be like Bobby Fischer again.
Well, it's definitely really exciting that Fabiano is the world challenger, and even people who don't play chess, now they know and they ask me questions. They go, oh, have you heard about that? I go, yeah, and he's actually from St. Louis now, so we're really proud of him.
And now to have an American World Chess Championship challenger, I mean, that's huge. I was following the candidates tournament with a lot of interest, and I was very happy to see Fabiano win and for us to have an American challenger, and it's going to be great for chess because it's going to be, the number 1, number 2 players in the world playing. It's going to be really great to watch.
Welcome to the chess capital of the United States. The St. Louis Chess Campus, in the heart of the vibrant Central West End, has established itself as a premier global destination for chess and is comprised of 2 unique nonprofit institutions. The Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis is recognized as the top chess facility in the world and plays host to all major tournaments, including the U.S. Chess Championships and the Sinkfield Cup, one of the strongest chess tournaments globally. Tournaments are broadcast online to more than 150 countries, led by an expert commentary team of grandmasters. The Chess Club is an educational organization committed to promoting the game of chess, with a specific focus on bringing the benefits of chess to children throughout the St. Louis area. Research shows children who play chess exhibit improved analytical skills and increased confidence. The Chess Club is highly engaged with the local community, bringing scholastic chess programs to more than 100 schools, providing hundreds of classes each week. Directly across the street from the Chess Club is the World Chess Hall of Fame. This one-of-a-kind cultural institution invites visitors to experience chess in imaginative ways and is home to the U.S. and World Chess Halls of Fame. Cutting-edge exhibitions feature rare, historic chess artifacts paired with world-class art. Innovative programming explores the intersection of chess, art, and culture. Visitors can enjoy interactive programs designed around the exhibitions and monthly music in the galleries. The World Chess Hall of Fame is nothing you expect and everything you love. 3 different galleries and a premier gift shop highlight the culture, history, and creativity behind the game. Come visit, play chess, leave enriched. To learn more about the St. Louis Chess Campus, visit stlchesscampus.org.
Hello and welcome back to our coverage of the World Chess Championship underway in London. Fabiano Caruana playing with the white pieces this game and uncorking a bit of a surprise, but Magnus so well prepared, met it fittingly, Yaz. And what's your impression of the position now that we have on the board after we left at the time before move 18, where Fabi was deciding between c takes b4 and other options. He did play c takes b4. Magnus quickly played a rook to a8 in reply. What's your take?
Equal.
Equal?
Equal. I'm just amazed
Amazing.
That you can get in this preparation. You can really hope to throw off your opponent, as did Fabi. You take this courageous approach. You put this great prep together, which is equally well met. This is like Djokovic and Federer, you know, just two great players playing against each other, each getting the right measure of their opponent. We analyzed this position with Jesse a moment ago. I played knight c3, and quite frankly, I got a poor position. Jesse had recommended to me the move bishop c3 as the proper way of playing. And with great reluctance, I'm going to have to accept your advice there, Jesse, and do that move.
Yeah. Well, let's take a
just
look at
because
this. Yeah.
the alternative didn't work out very well.
Right.
What would happen after bishop c3 if
All
you
right.
were good sir?
So the rook is hitting the bishop, and let's just say it's very uncomfortable if the bishop goes to b2, which would be the natural move, because honestly, you don't want to go to c3. You're just in the way of your knight.
Right.
So, but the problem is then you're just inviting this friend in. He's angry. He's an angry man.
He's not friendly.
He's not friendly. So bishop c3, and you know, this is a good example of chess principles. The computer likes black just a little bit better, but you know, let's just say some obvious stuff. Let's take off this pawn. And here's where my principles differ from Yasser's. Let's say something obvious. It doesn't look like it, but white's actually up a pawn. It doesn't look like it because his pieces are so funny. Why do I like black? I like the better king. I like the unopposed light square bishop for black. I do not like the knight on b1. The knight on b1 makes me sick to my stomach. And you could tell Yasser did not want to play bishop c3. No one does, and that's what Fabi's thinking about. Because you play bishop c3 and you get a knight like that.
On b1.
It's a bad business. In fact, one of my big moments as a chess player, I was talking about this when we were commenting the other tournament, was I played some game and I was a pawn grubber like Yasser, and I had a friend and we were analyzing, and he said, Jesse, and real serious, he was angry at me, never let me see you have a knight like that again. And right, no, I'm not going to have that knight. I'm not going to have it, and that's what you're doing when you play bishop c3. It's a real clunker of a move, you know. So, but what are you going to do? If you give back the pawn on b4, it's hard to see how you're going to contain the black pieces and the passed b pawn. Right. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, so it's difficult.
Jennifer, by the way, I wanted to say we have a very, very
That's
special guest
Grandmaster
from London.
Christian Carrilla is on the line. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Hi guys, how are you?
We're good. How are you doing in London, Christian?
Doing just fine, suffering.
But from the cold or suffering from what?
From the cold, not so much. I'm quite used to the cold, but definitely, you know, as a second is very, very difficult to watch the games. Because you know, you work throughout the day and then you hope that you're going to get some rest during the players' games, but in fact you just simply cannot do anything else but watch the game, and it's nerve-wracking, of course.
It is so nerve-wracking, Christian, I'm sure, especially in game one when there was like the time pressure situation. Could you watch, or did you have to close your eyes like in a scary movie?
Let me tell you one thing. That was the only game I fell asleep. So I woke up. That was the only game I fell asleep, and I woke up right after the time control when he played Queen G7 and Fabi got some drawing chances.
Right.
So I didn't go through the massacre before that, so I was very happy.
Well, thank God for your heart.
Right. You didn't experience all the painful palpitations. Christian, with each progressive draw, it seems like the tension is just, you know, ratcheting up and up and up. How is it as a trainer or second? Do you feel it in your gut? And what are you guys doing to deal with the stress?
It's difficult for me to tell you. To be honest, it feels like a tournament. Of course, each and every round is more and more tense, but at the same time, we're taking it one game at a time. And it seems like Fabiano is doing exactly that. You know, I cannot feel the tension. I cannot see it on his face. He's handling it quite well. And you know, we keep him busy. He's training. He's doing a lot of sports. I'm happy with what he's doing.
Very, very, very good. Give us some more kind of mood.
Yeah, what's the fan base like? Is Fabi getting mobbed for autographs before and after the game? Do you have to be double as his bodyguard?
We're trying to shield him from those type of things, of course. We're kind of in a bubble. We don't speak with pretty much anybody.
Except for us.
Except you know, you're special.
We're special.
Thank you, Christian. Well, you know, Christian, usually we have you on the Counts Corner. If you were going to do a Counts Corner on this game, what would you talk about?
Oh man, well, it's a difficult position to assess. I think it's very close to equality, but to be honest, I have a feeling Magnus right now is having the pressure, especially because of the bishop pair. I cannot lie to you and say that I'm happy with the opening outcome, but it is what it is, and you know. Fabiano will have to shield some pressure and then go through the storm and then potentially equalize the game. I don't think he's going to have much problems doing so.
It's incredible how it seems to me that Fabiano Caruana's mental game is so strong. Things don't really seem to get to him. He seems so tough. Is that something that you think he was born with, or is it something that he really worked on as well as specifically for this match?
I think Fabiano is a very streaky player, and this past year he has been going from success to success. I think the big difference was made when he beat Grishuk in last year's match. He was going down, and then he turned it around, and he beat one of the best blitz and rapid chess players on the planet. And I think that was a huge confidence boost. And after that, he just kept on winning and kept on winning. And the way I see him right now, he's extremely confident. He believes that, you know, he can take this title away from Magnus. So, you know, I'm very happy with his psychological condition at the moment. I don't think he's doing anything in particular. Of course, he's doing his yoga, he's doing his sports, and those help. But I think he just needs those victories, and he's getting those victories. He's on a streak, and I think that definitely plays into his good form.
Every second day, Christian, you get almost 48 hours off Are any of those hours actually restful? I mean, you mentioned yoga. I know that when Fabi famously turned it around in the candidates, he saw The Shape of Water before.
As a movie.
Yes. Are you actually having any fun in those rest days, or is it pretty stressful?
No, absolutely, absolutely. You know, we work a little bit less. We go to sleep a little bit early. We wake up a little bit late, later than usual, and you know, we take a lot of walks. We try to enjoy the atmosphere of London. It is a very beautiful city, and you know, Fabiano is having a good time in those rest days. But of course, there is a lot of work being put in his preparation as well.
Is he recognized by random people in the streets of London, like not outside the tournament hall, just around?
We were recognized once at a restaurant in the first day or something like that. We were eating at this ramen place, and some guy just came to us and he said that we're here from France, you know, we're supporting Fabiano and so on, you know, all the nice thoughts. And that was the only time we got recognized.
Oh, I'm sure you were recognized more times, but people just didn't want to bother you, Christian. But, and when he wins a match, then you're going to need to up that bodyguard team.
Exactly. You know, again, I don't want to get too much into your prep or anything like that, but Christian, for me as a chess grandmaster, I'm a little bit stunned how ineffective the players, both players, have been with the white pieces, and how Black has, I'm not going to say been dictating, but Black has been having an easy time. Has that come as a surprise to yourself?
I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case for all the games, of course,
no.
But you know, a lot of players nowadays, they focus especially on their Black openings, just to feel secure. And then, you know, with white, you have a bit more mobility. So, you know, I think Magnus's team has put a lot of work into his Black repertoire, and it shows. And, you know, that's what we want to see. We want to have a very difficult challenge. That's what we're getting right now. So, we are all enjoying it.
Wonderful.
But I'm not surprised, no.
Wonderful, Jesse. I wanted to invite you in here. Do you have a question that you might want to address either to Christian or to Fabi?
Well, yeah, Christian, I guess I would ask you, just as a chess player, not necessarily the second, how do you feel about this move, bishop c3? Does it make you sick to your stomach to see this bishop c3 move? Which I think
it's a difficult position. It is a difficult position, especially because of those angry bishops, you know, especially the light square bishop. The knight on b1 is not looking great at the moment. No. He's going to have to find a way to get him out. Of course, if you play d3, then the bishop on c3 is no longer going to be safe. Also, potentially, the pawn on d3 is going to be attacked via bishop b3, bishop c2, potentially. It's a very uncomfortable position, but at the same time, okay, bishop c3, it's a difficult move to make, but what else?
Right.
If you play bishop b2, then rook a2 comes, and you're kind of forced to go bishop c3 once again. If you go knight to c3, then you're most probably going to have some problems with the knight on c3, or with the bishop on a1, sorry. But at the same time, I'm not really sure what you're going to do after knight takes b4, because I'm threatening knight c2, and if Black manages to get the c7 pawn as well, he's going to have a pass pawn on the b file, and that's going to be extremely dangerous. So it's decision time for Fabiano, that's for sure.
Very difficult.
Is he going to allow Black to get the pawn on b4, or is he going to accept a passive defense? Nevertheless, the b pawn is going to be safeguarded, at least for the moment.
So, you know what it's like when you play bishop c3, it's one of those terrible yoga poses. And he's going to have to hold it for a really long time with his legs twisted around. And
yeah, he'll be fine, apparently, because he's doing a lot of yoga. Hey, Christian, speaking of yoga, there's been a lot of mainstream articles about Fabiano and, you know, his life outside the game. Since you obviously know Fabi better than almost anyone right now, were there any that you really thought captured the man? Mainstream media pieces that talked about Fabi that you liked?
To be honest, we had the best laugh about the Guardian piece, the one where they were mentioning he's an aspiring film director, which is complete nonsense.
Yeah, baby.
He likes movies, though.
He does like movies, but obviously he's not trying to become a film director. That was quite funny. So we had best laughs about that. But to be honest, we're kind of shielded away from media, and we're trying not to follow as much as possible. And especially Fabiano, he's definitely not paying attention to those type of things.
Because he's working on his script, obviously.
Right, but yeah, he's going to get that happy ending by beating Magnus, you know.
That's exactly. He's working on the World Championship victory script. Christian, tell us one thing about Fabi's personality that has nothing to do with chess that would surprise people.
I mean, he's a very stubborn guy, and I guess that plays into his game as well. And to be honest, I think that's a good thing. But he is a very, very stubborn guy. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but
sometimes you just gotta believe in your ideas.
If he wants Chinese food, he's gonna get Chinese food.
That's it.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
No, I think it's a trait, quite frankly, that top grandmasters have, and they have to have this stubbornness and this absolutism and the belief that they have not only in themselves but in their ideas. So that one doesn't surprise me, Christian, that he has that. I did want to ask you one other question. At the very start of play, there was a big surprise. In the media center, where College House, where the event is being held, they had like a media center with 35 chairs for the journalists as they were coming. But there was 120 accredited journalists. When you go to the playing hall, are you accosted with requests for interviews and the like? Are you surprised by how many journalists you're seeing in London?
There's plenty of them, but to be honest, there's much more important persons than myself around there. So,
you're not the primary target.
Also, I'm, I haven't been on the European scene for a very long time. So we're in London. If the tournament would have been in the US, probably I would be recognized much more often. But on this side of the pond, I'm kind of undercover.
So usually you're here
Clever.
in St. Louis with us on the team. Let us know what you miss the most, Christian.
Sorry, what?
What do you miss the most about being here in St. Louis? And this is a softball question.
I mean, I'm definitely not missing the weather. It's pretty snowy in there as well.
Yeah, it's a white Christmas over here.
Oh man, you're not getting this one.
I miss you guys.
Okay.
And that's completely
getting warmer.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable, Christian. I feel you there. Yeah.
Seriously though, Christian, thank you so much.
I know
it's a really busy job that you have here with Team Caruana, so we really appreciate you giving us this exclusive interview. I mean,
absolutely.
We miss you,
right?
But we know you're doing good work out there.
And just let Fabi know, man, oh man, does he have so much support?
That's right. We're all
a world of support coming from St. Louis, direct to yourselves in London.
Thank you.
We're on Team Fabi.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Absolutely. You too, guys.
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Jesse, bring us up to date. You've had plenty of chance to really get into the position.
Yeah.
And what are the problems for both sides? I mean, you've been mentioning White's problems, but does Black have issues? He is a pawn down, after all.
Black is a pawn down, that's right. And we've had a very long think here from Fabi.
Okay.
And I get it, because this is a very difficult moment. And one thing is, like, even if you kind of do a process of elimination and then decide that bishop c3 is in fact your best move, it's going to be very hard psychologically to play, because once you do it, you know that you're just sitting down to getting punished for the next couple hours, right? That's what you're going to know when you play bishop c3. I want to say also that I have a feeling he might not play knight c3. There might be part of his soul which says, I can never do that to my knight. I would have a hard time doing that to my knight. So if he doesn't do it, one thing I want to say about people watching is that it really frustrates me when, Fabi doesn't do the computer move, right? Because this is a position where I wouldn't want to do the computer move either. It just does not look good. And even though with the computer and you start looking that you see that knight c3 doesn't work, which is really the only other option,
right?
You still want to find a way, like force a way to make knight c3 work, because bishop c3 is so ugly, right? And the consequences are really long term. For example, let's give just a couple variations of how the computer sees the position.
Please.
King c7, and then it wants to go out on an adventure with knight g5.
Okay.
So one thing I tell my students is you don't want to play with your pretty pieces. You want to fix your bad pieces. And this is an example of playing with your pretty pieces. Pretty because it's the only piece that can do something. Your knight's terrible, your bishop's pretty awkward, right? And so on a move like this, black is free to have various choices. Bishop c4, keeping the bishop. That would be my first thought. But you could also do things, the computer's saying things like bishop f8 or rook a4, even giving the bishop. Why? Because that knight was like white's only good piece. And a simple way to think about chess is if you're playing against an opponent's bad piece, you want to trade off all the others.
Right.
And that's kind of a thing that Fischer invented. At least through his games, I was able to understand that. And so this is really dangerous when you start trading off everybody that's bad. Imagine you're a bunch of guys and you're going out in the town and there's one ugly guy like me. It's fine if there's like 20 of you. But then when there's only 2 of you, I start to really stand out. I don't look so good, right? And that's kind of what it's like when you start trading the pieces that are good, right? And so knight g5, the computer suggestion, another move that I wouldn't like to play. So it just shows you, like, playing the computer's move, not necessarily something that humans like to do, to make the position ugly and undynamic.
This reminds me of game 4 where Fabi, go ahead, that position that you had, Jesse, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It went bishop c3, king c7, knight g5. It reminds me of game 4 where Fabi played in my opinion, a really good move, b7, b5. And the idea behind that move at the time he played it was simply to fix a pawn on b4, which was being guarded by a bishop on c3. When black plays the move b5, stupid or whatever it is, however you'd like to describe the move, it does say, hey, look, for the long term, go ahead, play knight takes e6. Why else did you play knight g5, by the way? And guess what's left? Just what you've been extrapolating on. The ugly knight.
The ugly knight.
The ugly pawn.
The ugly king.
And the ugly king. And on black side of the board, the only thing ugly I see is the bishop on g7. Once it goes back to f8, it's going to be heroic.
Right.
So I see a lot of pluses coming out of this particular variation for black.
Absolutely. And part of the problem is once your pieces are funny like this, it's very hard to start doing anything active. You know, bishop c3 is telling yourself and the world that I'm just going to try to hunker down and try to survive this thing.
So I want to play a little bit more actively, if you would allow for a moment. And just in this moment, I would like to try or essay the move rook on e1 to c1. I'm kind of bluntly hoping for a trick against the king on c7. I want to play, you know, to capture a pawn on e5 or to play b5.
They'd say d7. Black could play b6 too, but let's try d7.
Okay. Can I get in the move b5?
Let's try it out.
Let's give it a shot.
We're coming in.
We got it
and
on
knight
d4.
e4, I see. And once again, if I take on d4 with the bishop this time, and I play d3, at the end, I'm dreaming of knight d2. I'm thinking if I could just get a knight d2.
Yeah.
But rook a1 is annoying.
Rook a1, yeah.
Okay, it's not the end of the world yet. Rook e1.
Okay.
Oh gosh,
it's really bad.
But it is getting very frightening, isn't it?
This pawn's going to be hard to hold long
term.
Terrible.
Terribly difficult.
Right.
But I do have knight d2. I'm like one move away from being okay. I mean, I'm on the edge.
Yeah.
There's a precipice of something bad happening.
You know, and
what about just like getting a bishop to c2 and a bishop to h6?
Yeah.
King to d6, that's really simple, right? Just going after the pawn on
bishop
b5.
h2 was always on the menu, trading off the rooks.
Let's go ahead and look. I mean,
continue the line.
Right,
continue the line, sure.
Oh man, so now you're gonna.
It's two knights versus two bishops, but you'll get the pass b pawn, and I will suffer. Terrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this looks like
really bad.
Really.
And this is starting to turn into the dream position. Well, this is the dream position for the two bishops.
And that's why Bobby's looking into a think, because he doesn't want to go for this. He was going to look for other
he doesn't
options.
want anything like this.
Well, you didn't have to play b5 though. B5 was not forced.
Continue the line that I wanted.
Bishop c3.
3, king c7, rook c1. That was okay. King over, and this time instead of b5, as Jennifer says, let's start with d2, d3. I'm trying to get my knight to d2 and to c4, and then I'm out of the woods.
And one nice thing about it for black is he has a variety of moves. It's like white's the one who has to play precisely. Rook a2 looks good to me here. Yasser's b5. Look at that, boom. Just say long term.
I got the stupid b4 pawn.
Yeah.
Keep it, right?
Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you, Jesse. So issues for Fabi for sure, but Jennifer, we have a phone call from New York.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Oh man, so now you're gonna. It's two knights versus two bishops.
I think we're hearing ourselves. We sound so beautiful.
I'm not so sure about that.
Turn your TV off and ask us the question or call back.
Sorry, my name's Charlie from Queens.
Hi.
Yeah, I have two questions. My first one is, this is more for Jesse and Yasser, since they were around at the time when Fischer was champion. I don't even think Jen was born yet. But do you think if Fabiano wins, that it will be the same euphoria that when Fischer won, the same boom to chess? So you think because of Fischer's personality, he was a pretty dynamic kind of guy, he more or less, brought it onto himself. Plus, it was the Soviet Union against the free world. And my second question is, how come FIDE had the women's world championship the same time that they had the men's? Wouldn't it make more sense to have it at different times so people can watch both if they wanted to? I'll take my questions off the air.
Thank you. Two very, very excellent salient questions. Unfortunately, no. Should Fabi win the World Championship, it would be great for chess. It would be a phenomenal uplifting, a rising tide, and all boats being lifted. But it was just simply a different era. It was the Cold War era. Bobby was Bobby, completely unique. It was totally front page news and massive, massive coverage. It would just be great for American chess, but I don't think you can even say the euphoria would be the same.
But I feel like a lot of people ask that question, and it's and to me it's very negative, because the way that they're asking it, you're going to get a negative answer.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, what about all the amazing things that are happening in chess now that weren't happening then?
No.
The great infrastructure we have online,
the internet
young
itself.
Players. In fact, we actually have a new world champion in the United States.
Hey, let's mention it now that you brought it up. Check this out.
That's right. That was some great.
8-year-old, or it's the
he
under
is 8. Is the under 8, but that's based on the age as of January 1.
In Spain.
So we've got an 8-year-old. Raj Chenareddy from Illinois, and he actually clinched a gold medal. Get this, he went 9 out of 9 in the World Under 8 Championship, clinching the gold medal with an entire round to spare. Congratulations to Raj, and he's part of the massive U.S. chess delegation in Santiago, Spain, sponsored by 2 Sigma, and it's just incredible. He's actually coached by Kostya Kavutsky, as well as Mezgin Aminov, who's his main coach, and was like working with him on Skype in the mornings. And they both said this kid just loves chess. Super nice kid.
I want to sign him up to a management contract right here, right now. All I ask is
searching for Fabi,
10% lifetime earnings. And
in other chess news, we had a tie at the top of the table in the Shenzhen Chess Masters, but it was MVL who won on tiebreak over Guri and Ding Liren. Just incredible, all the events going on simultaneously. The second caller, I mean, the caller's second question was about why the Women's World Championship and the World Championship at the same time, speaking of all these overlapping events. And I do agree. I think that that's suboptimal because, of course, the women, therefore, get less attention. I mean, just think about the fact that normally there would be several prestigious chess journalists there, but now they can't be there because they're in London.
Clear.
Which is giving them not quite as much attention as they deserve, but we're very proud that we're featuring their games and some of their graphics here on the Today in Chess show. That said, I'm really excited about the new direction of women in chess. It seems like a few days after getting elected,
Arkady Djorkovic has made an announcement for a very positive change for women's chess.
He didn't mention actually the overlap as much as the prize fund and the structure of the event.
Okay, but we got to go back just a little bit about the Conti World Championship for ladies and the fact that Zhu Wenjun won the World Championship in a match earlier this year. The problem was that there was a scheduling problem before that, so it kind of like dominoed and pushed the Women's World Championship matches into a situation which we have as an overlap. Hopefully that will be corrected. We won't see this type of clash on the calendar, which is very injurious, by the way, not only to the players themselves and organizers, but also the journalists, because the journalists would like to go to these World Championships wherever they are around the world. It's their duty. That's what they do. And, you know, they don't have the option. They really do have to go to London in this case.
Indeed. So great questions, though. And
thank you for those questions. They're very, very good. On point. And Jesse, back to you. Have we seen the move Bishop C3, reluctantly played or otherwise?
Right, yeah, reluctantly played. He thought a long time. And to his credit, let's call it to his human credit, after King takes C7, he has not played Knight G5, the computer move, which, like, I just didn't feel right to play Knight G5.
Right.
So he played the human move D3, which we were kind of looking at. An important difference between the variations we had where we were just fooling around
Rook C1 and
is
stuff.
Rook C1, your rook will be loose after the bishop on C3 is traded. So on E1, the rook A1 threat won't be such a big deal if some kind of Knight D4 later happens.
As was one of our variations, we went rook on E1 to C1 at one turn.
That's right.
And then brought it right back.
Then brought it right back. We lost the clean tempo.
So D3 is a superior choice.
Right. And so the intention is clear. We want to fix this knight, and any good player is going to want to fix their bad pieces. Black, now, I think Magnus is going to think a while. He's already probably seen this position while he was waiting for Fabi to move. The choices, though, I think are kind of simple. You've got B5, you've got Rook A2, and there might be, maybe you could, no, I think those are the choices. You don't want to, F6 is kind of a natural move to dominate the knight on F3, but you don't want to allow D4, right? You don't want to allow that. And we want to keep the bishop on G7 in contact with the D4 square if we ever want to play knight D4.
So your two main moves are rook on A8 to A2, so you could put that move on there. That's option number one, which is the active develop your rook. And the second one was this move, B5, which just to fix the weak pawn.
Well, to fix the weak pawn and to say, my game plan is to beat you in 20 moves with queening the pawn on B1. It's coming, right? We're coming with that B pawn, and it's honestly, black can win that pawn on B4.
Okay.
Right, and what white needs to say to himself is, I'm going to give away that pawn in some creative fashion and get enough counterplay activity with my own pieces to hold the position. I think that's, you know, the sensible way to think.
Of the two moves that you're suggesting, Rook A2 and B5, which one tickles your fancy the most? In other words, what would be your choice, Jesse?
I like B5 just on a superficial glance level. Rook A2 would be your move if you felt you were able to really discoordinate the white pieces. So, for example, if knight BD2, the problem is then I play rook C2, and then you're just in a mess. You got to go back to knight.
Attacking the bishop, which defends the B4 pawn.
And you don't want to go back. That's not where you want it to
go. That's not why you play D3.
So that's the motivation, though, for playing rook A2 is to stop things like that. But white doesn't have to play.
Oh, you were going to go knight A3 there? Yeah.
So maybe something like King F1 intending Rook E2 and trying to fix this poor king.
Exactly.
As we saw in a lot of variations, the king is really a victim. He's worth about 3 points, like a knight or a bishop, and if you don't have him in the endgame, it often feels as if you're just playing down a piece.
Yeah, you're playing behind, yeah.
So King F1, and what do you want to do for black in this position?
I still want to play B5.
Yeah. So,
it's a very long-term strategy, you know? And if you play Rook E2, just for kicks, let's put that on the board. Yeah. Where am I going? I can go anywhere, but I'd really like to go to A4 and start talking to that pawn. And honestly, this move, Rook A4 after B5, that's the clean intention, to play Rook A4, and then when I need it, to play Bishop F8. Right. I can't play Bishop F8 until I secure the pawn on E5, but I am ultimately playing just to win that pawn and to march down the B file. And to say, my bishops are much better. The unopposed bishop, especially on E6, is a monster. So very pleasant position for black, even though the computer, and I suppose other people might even still want to claim that it's equal, but in terms of just a playing experience, I know I'd much rather be black here.
Right. You just feel that this is a position where black is having more of the fun. He's getting he's getting a greater share of the fun than you are.
And it's also a position where if black makes an inaccuracy, there's no cost. There's no big cost. If white makes just one, he has to really hold the line here. White makes one small mistake, then I think that's over. You know, it's really bad.
Okay, so Fabi under pressure, according to Jesse in the engines, and he has to be very accurate, Jen. Oh, let me update my board.
Oh, and we've got a little bit of a recap for you on the number of moves from each game here. Remember that epic game 1, Yaz, 115 moves as Fabi fought his way to the draw. One of the funniest tweets I saw about that was from Nigel Short.
What did Nigel say?
Said that he didn't think Fabi should draw the game. Not because of the middle where, you know, he got into super time pressure in a terrible position, but because he didn't believe in the stalemate rule. Talk about not being on hashtag Team Fabi.
What is that?
And of course the other games if we pull up that graphic one more time, it was the shortest game that we saw in round 4.
Was game 4.
Which is 34 moves.
Yeah, you see this epically long marathon of a game 1. The number of moves cuts down dramatically for game 2, equaled in game 3, and then the shortest game of the match was game 4.
We almost
and the most
had
frustrating for Magnus because he was white, right? You got nothing.
And we have almost as many moves in game 1 as in the rest of the event.
Something like that combined. Now, this is very important. Let me reiterate what's going on here. Was in game 4, Magnus had white, right? And in game 6, Magnus is going to have white. And in game 7, Magnus is going to have white. So literally from game 4 to game 7, we're going to Fabi is going to have 3 blacks out of those 4 games. So if he can weather this storm, he's going to be doing fine. We didn't expect, especially after this move B4, that he might find himself in an awkward endgame position. We've just seen the move D3, and Jesse has been explaining to us that Magnus has a very pleasant choice of Rook A2, the active move, posting his rook deeply into white's camp, and or the positionally savvy move B7, B5, fixing this pawn on B4 as a long-term weakness that black can in the future gang up against. So 2 very good, equally good moves for Magnus to be considering, and Fabi at the moment is looking at a bailout. How do I get myself out of this and go back to my team and saying, okay, guys, what did we do wrong today? Again,
I don't think it's what Fabi did wrong. I think it's what Magnus did right. In this game, well, I mean, come on. Like, that was dangerous.
Well, but hold on. We'll go back and forth for a second. I mean, you're white, and you're coming up with this really, really crazy, cool, gambit-like play. you're not supposed to be worse.
Yeah, but
just because your opponent plays good.
But your opponent, you don't assume your opponent's going to play like a 3,200 in like 20 moves. It could happen.
But if you're preparing,
but it's a gamble.
But
it's a good gamble.
You're supposed to play like a 3,200 for 20 moves as well. It's your preparation. Jump in here,
I don't
Jesse.
know. I think it was a good gamble by Fabi, and he got unlucky that Magnus played perfectly.
Well, something went wrong for White.
Let's
worse.
revisit. Let's
Yeah,
revisit the
please.
hopefulness that we experienced in this position. What a beautiful position! If even were we wrong? Was Queen E2 wrong? Maybe Knight C3 at some point. Hard to. It's like this weird thing. I think one of the interesting things to me about chess is actually being wrong. When you're wrong, it's like this really, especially here in this position, I just feel it for White. But you can see the beginnings of the dilemma already here. The knight on B1 is bad. The bishop on A1 needs a life. And so in the next couple moves, Fabi didn't fix that. I wanted him to play knight C3 at some point, right? Preferably like takes and play knight C3 here, but obviously he had his own notion. So he was wrong about this position, and I was wrong as well. And now we're in this miserable business over here. And I want to say that, even though I felt this was worse for White, the engines the entire time were saying basically equal. The longer I let Maurice's machine run on this position, especially with the move B5, it's starting to say, oh, Jesse, I see what you're saying. This is really bad. This is really bad news.
It's warming up to your side of the argument and saying, oh, White is suffering.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Because you can't really move. Like this knight actually can't move to D2 that easily because of simple moves like Rook A3.
And after Rook C1 to defend the bishop?
There might even be something better, but I'm just seeing, like, also Rook D8.
Ugh. That's quite annoying as well. Or maybe just simply very, very annoying, Jesse.
So when you imagine this position as White, like, it's hard to move the knight. And in fact...
After B5.
After B5. And in fact, like...
that's a good point, yeah.
That... you're going to have to, I think you bring the king in or something, but the knight on B1 is committed. He's like in he's institutionalized for a while, and he's just going to stay there for a little bit. Because you see, it's so hard, and, White is up a pawn, but it's not that significant. Let's call his extra pawn the D3 pawn at this point. And it's just not doing that much.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're saying that White Knight is not on Team Fabi, or it's actually the weakest part of Team Fabi.
It's the weakest part of Team Fabi.
Let's get those biceps strengthened.
Yeah, it's in the dorm. It needs to get into the battle. It's sleeping.
It needs to do some hammer curls, yeah. Speaking of hammer curls, Trevor Noah pointed out Grandmaster Maurice Ashley's biceps on the show, and Maurice is back in the house.
Wonderful.
And so we are going to take a quick break and get him back on the show. But first, we want to give a very big hearty thank you to the Grandmaster Jesse Kraai, who climbed out of bed.
I mean,
he was just going to watch us over his coffee.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
Have his sensei open, and he came to join us in person. Thank you very much.
It's called Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
And as the GM in Res, I mean, when that phone call came, Jesse, you responded. Thank you so much.
And I got to drive Maurice's machine. That was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and you're
it's been
sporting
great.
that tie from Q Boutique.
That's right. Right across the way, the Hall of Fame. I got this tie there. Really nice. Yeah, a lot of nice stuff there.
You get a lot of benefits by being a commentator
That's
here in
right.
St. Louis, right? Well, do make sure to come back again. Absolutely, right?
I'd love
Okay,
to.
we got that. Before we go on break, we just want to inform we've got another fireside chat. I think we're up to Michael Tall.
Oh, indeed. Well, stay tuned because these fireside chats are very entertaining.
They're fun. They're fun. And we'll be back with Maurice Ashley.
So, Yasser, the post-World War chess international scene needs champions.
Exactly.
And FIDE shows up and says, well, we're going to organize this, and the age of the private world championships end.
That's precisely right.
They have this match tournament. Botvinnik wins the tournament ahead of everybody, and then that starts a real reign of dominance for this one player.
No question about it. So FIDE comes into being more or less 1924. And a lot of people kind of ignore FIDE, at least as far as the World Chess Championship is concerned. But the problem is Alekhine dies as the reigning world champion. So now others have to put together the whole world championship cycle and to make it a continuum that constantly succeeds. So they started with the 5 players for the world championship. That's like that Botvinnik wins. And then they make these matches and the whole candidates and the channels
of candidates and interzonals,
and
that
all of that
for us
comes
seemed so
along.
Natural back in that time period.
Was all new.
Was all brand new.
Brand new, brand new. And this post-World War II chess experience was really the hegemony of the Soviets. Botvinnik becomes the guy.
Moscow becomes the capital of world championships.
No,
10 world championships get played in Moscow only, but Botvinnik is in 7 of them.
Please.
It's like home turf every time he plays.
Absolutely. So he starts, of course, with a 12-12 draw. He retains his world champion against Bronstein, the most creative genius ever.
Well,
Then comes
there'll be some arguments over that, maybe, but yes,
David
Tal might get thrown in there, but
we're coming there. Yeah. But then we go to Smyslov. Smyslov upsets Botvinnik, but then loses the rematch. And the rematch
It was a tie first, though. It was first a tie.
Tie.
Then upsets Botvinnik, and then
rematch. Now the rematch clause, that's the thing that sticks in a lot of people's craw. Hey, look, you're the champ. If I beat you,
I'm the champ.
I'm the champ. Are we going to constantly be perpetually calling for a rematch against ourselves whenever we lose? But the rematch clause is what keeps Botvinnik in his throne. And it comes to 1960, and another, like Capablanca, force of nature is created. But this time, instead of this beautiful, positional, exquisite, harmonic play, we get chaos on some quantum level.
I thought you were going to say kick-ass, because
yeah.
came with the wood. He was dropping bombs on people. The way he played, Tal's my favorite player of all time. You watch the way he played chess. Nobody thought you could play chess like that. Not at the world championship level.
Absolutely not.
And win the title. No. This guy didn't care about chess pieces. It didn't look like he cared about queens even. Just like, whatever I can sack, I'm just going to sack. I'm going to mate you. They would find out it was unsound afterwards, and he'd say, who cares? I'm just trying to crush you. Did you find it at the board? Don't tell me what you found back home.
6 months later.
I mean, it really sometimes took months. We didn't have computers back then, so it took months to refute some of his sacrifices.
Exactly.
He was just absolutely incredible, and he knocked Botvinnik for a loop in game 1, right away. Boom, your French defense, take that out of here. Botvinnik switched to the Caro. This guy's crazy, he's wild, I can't handle him in that, and started going more solid after that.
Force of nature. Just undeniable force of nature. Quantum chaos, tactics galore. Michael Tal, the youngest world champion ever.
At the time, 24 years old.
Yeah, unbelievable. Because when we think about world champions and Steinitz and Botvinnik,
you could be in your 50s and be world champion.
Now you're getting youthful. Now, 1960, that was huge. But Botvinnik got that rematch clause.
Yeah, that rematch clause. And you know, Botvinnik also felt like he didn't really lose that match to Tal. There were some positions he felt like he could have outplayed him.
Yeah.
He did start outplaying him near the end.
Right.
But the lead was so big already that
he had been overwhelmed.
Was just overwhelming. And Tal played some amazing games.
Magic.
It's like, I think game 6, he had the black pieces and he played this wild King's Indian, put a knight on F4, said, take it, I don't care. Go right ahead.
Right.
And for him, it was all about what he called taking his opponents into the jungle where 2 + 2 = 5.
Right.
And the way out is only one guy coming out.
Right.
And that
the path was very narrow.
Very slim. And so, but then in 61, Botvinnik had figured it out and said, I'm not going to play that same craziness. I'm going to watch you. And also, Tal had a little bit of illness as well.
This is the big problem. This is the big problem. Misha was one of those players. He loved the bottle. There was not a single party that he never said no.
He also was doing 50, 60 cigarettes a day.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I mean, how do you do that and pull that off?
In some of the games I played with Michael, when he was smoking a cigarette and he was taking a deep drag, he was already lighting another one, forgetting the fact that he already had a cigarette in his hand. So yeah, he was definitely, carton every 2 days kind of thing, and a big drinker.
And I remember reading this, which is kind of a wild thing, that he had some kind of illness. I know he had renal, kidney issues as well. But when he'd have a problem, the way he'd cure it was by drinking.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, nowadays sounds farcical.
Like what?
He's using alcohol.
Yeah.
But
using alcohol to knock out whatever virus or germ you may have. Yeah.
But he definitely was a darling to many. The games that he produced, even after he lost the title to Botvinnik, were still fantastic. His unbeaten streak of so many games was a real champion. But he was really one of those, as far as the World Championship's concerned, meteorites.
Absolutely.
Came and burned and disappeared, but left such an indelible memory on all of us.
No question, absolutely. And there's so many stories, and they're each and every one of them wonderful in their own way. Two very quick ones. When he lost the World Championship title, his humanitarian spoke out when he said, well, now the Soviet school children are all very happy when I lost the World Championship. Now, instead of learning how to sacrifice their pawns and pieces, they could go back to learning how to defend them. And that made them all very, very happy. He was a humanitarian, too. He was just a beautiful, beautiful person.
And also a great writer will just say, if you haven't read Tal Botvinnik 1960, get it now.
Exactly.
What a treat that book is. That written by Tal himself, a lyrical book by an epic world champion.
I just felt like I was right at his elbow side when he played that match. And the second one is he's in Moscow, as is his common. He's in a hospital. He's suffering something. And he's told that night at the Moscow Central Chess Club, Garry Kasparov, the world champion's playing in the Blitz Championship at the Moscow Central Chess Club. The guy's got tubes. He's in the hospital nightgown. He slips out of the hospital, goes and plays in the tournament, and beats Garry Kasparov. From his hospital bed!
That was Tal.
Maurice,
vintage.
Come on.
Vintage Tal. Well, of course, he couldn't handle Botvinnik. Botvinnik then goes on, plays Petrosian, loses. But Botvinnik had his big reign. Tal certainly had his magical year. And those two great champions we'll never forget.
Never.
Hello, and we are back. I'm Jennifer Shahade with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan covering the World Championship. We got to thank Jesse Kraai for filling in from Maurice, who is now back from the Trevor Noah Show, the Daily Show, to Today in Chess. Maurice, thanks for being back.
Hey, it was a lot of fun being on the show. We had a great time. Trevor is a chess player, although I did have to bust his chops about making fun of chess while I was on the show. But we had a great time. It was so much fun being in the green room and chatting with him and then finally going on the show itself. That was a lot of fun. I tried to catch the flight this morning, but they delayed the flight because of the weather here in St. Louis. And so I could not get here on time. But I've been watching. Jesse definitely filled in admirably. And when I landed, I was looking and I was like, my God, look at this crazy position. So I'm excited to be able to look at this position with you guys, of course.
That's right.
Thank you, Maurice, and welcome back. Yeah, I thought you did great, by the way. I thought you're a tremendous ambassador for chess.
And indeed, we were saying nice things about you, which is pretty rare when you're not here. Usually
Absolutely.
we take that opportunity to grill you.
That's
but
cool. Right.
seriously, Maurice, I mean, you missed this incredible opening. Were you in the
saw.
air when that happened?
I was in the air and
on Wi-Fi?
On one of those small planes that don't have any Wi-Fi. So I'm like biting my fingernails, like, oh my goodness. But as soon as I landed, the car picked me up. I pull out the phone, and which the magic of today's technology in chess to be able to look at it anywhere you want to. And I was B4. What? Whoa! And it just got crazy. The stuff hit the fan. But Magnus, man, this guy is a boss. Handled the situation admirably, and I started worrying a little bit about Fabi. How is he going to coordinate his pieces? But it looks like he's back in business with this move, King B6, which doesn't look too accurate. You guys were talking about B5. I was really worried about that move. That looked like it was cementing the position, the advantages for black, and looking to torture white as much as possible. But this king on B6 looks a bit more exposed. It looked like it would be passive on the D7 square and an extra piece if it just marches up the board. But in fact, it could be a target to a knight landing on C3. It could never really take on B4 because a rook will show up on the B line. And so now he's getting some dynamic chances to defend is Fabi. And I think this move, King B6, is going to be one that Magnus kicks himself about as this position may be solidifying. It's going to all be about coordination for white. This knight on B1, as soon as it enters the game and he gets coordinated with his pieces, then he's not going to be worse. He's just going to be okay.
Boy, I feel like I've got to make a confession here because while we were on break and I went to Jesse and thanked him very much for subbing for you, I said, you know, Jesse, you kept talking about this move B5, blockading the pawn on b4 as well as the move rook a2. And I have to confess that I thought king b6 was a really good move because you're getting ready to blockade the pawn. You've activated the king, and I thought that was a really good move.
It looks pretty.
It looks very pretty. And that Jesse says, yeah, but the problem, Yaz, is it's a thing of timing. You step back with the bishop, which gives you this opportunity to bring your knight out, and you've also got this bishop coming to e3 with check.
So that you can defend the pawn on d3 with rook d1 if needed. So it's just that one extra tempo.
Yeah, it's a timing thing. And king b6 is not as precise as b5. And
but that's what you would play in blitz, king b6.
Right, of course.
Go for it. That outpost looks really dazzling. So.
And the way he explained it to me, he cleared up all the cobwebs, and I said thank you. And then, of course, king b6 was played, and it was like, oh, I have the confession. I was attracted to the same move.
I mean, that's a story of the match from games 2 to 5. That one player gets a little something, and
then a hesitant
the adversary
move
or the adversary just defends brilliantly, like perfect moves.
I think
game one was the exception to that story arc.
Fabi needed help.
So far, it feels like for 2 to 5, we're getting a similar arc of phenomenal defense. Maurice,
I think you're overstating the phenomenal defense for these guys because, truthfully, it seems as though they're not in precise form against the great defense that has been coming. You can have all the great defense you want. If you're worse, you're worse. And if the guy plays the right moves, for example, and it's been retreating moves too, by the way, that point you made, Jen, this move with Fabi when he missed the idea, and wasn't it a bishop d2 miss? Actually, it was.
Right.
It was also
rook
bishop
takes a5.
Right. He could have played rook takes a5 instead of bishop to d2. He could have played rook takes a5 in game 2 and then play bishop d2. He admitted after he actually played bishop d2 itself that he missed the retreating move, rook to a8. In this game, Magnus could have played squeeze moves like b5, but here comes the retreating bishop d2. Would he have suspected that the bishop would have gone back to d2 in this position, a retreating move to give way for the knight to go forward, and now the variations are going to start working in White's favor as this helps him to coordinate his pieces. Obviously, this bishop is not well placed here, and it's going to be better placed here as it's out of the way of the knight, and c3 is such a beautiful square for the knight, as opposed to the circuit of d2 and try to figure out where you're going to go from there, especially when that pawn was on b5 and stopping the knight from going anywhere. So this move, bishop d2, if we start looking at it concretely, there's one variation we have to note, and it's this one. Rook over, check, and now king up the board. And here's the problem. It looks like black is getting everything, all the activity. But suddenly, knight c3 check, you grab your pawn, and now you're hitting the knight and you're hitting this pawn on d3. But white can play directly, just start changing off, and he got his bad piece. The piece that Jesse was talking about was the bad piece. It's now gone. The good bishop also gone. After pawn takes, rook takes, now play this rook b1 check. White has active pieces suddenly. Well, let's be aggressive. King here, rook takes, and for a moment, it is black who's up material. One pawn up, threatening a mate. Maybe he's the one who's doing something, but a move like king f1, for example, now he's perfectly fine as white, and guess who's on the 7th rank and acting crazy on that rank is this rook. The pawn's hit, the bishop's hit, the pawn's going to be hit. All your initiative has dried up. He's gotten rid of all the bad pieces and also your primary good piece, that bishop on e6, and suddenly he's back in business, and white should be more than okay here. So Magnus, no doubt, missed this retreating move, bishop d2, all the way back here. This move, this is the kind of move that top grandmasters will miss regularly. Retreating moves are one of them, moves where you can go to a square that's protected by pieces or most especially by a pawn. And other type moves like discovered attacks, we talked about that as well. These are the kind of moves that the top players miss. They don't miss things like pins and forks, and that's boring stuff for them. But the top players will miss these subtle kind of moves that play with the mind, and a retreating move is one of them. And I think Magnus missed bishop d2, and now you see him stuck on the position, because if he had seen bishop d2, he would have moved already.
Right.
Now that he's looking at it, he's like, where'd my advantage go? And it looks like Fabi is back in business.
Well, I love that because, you know, you talked about grandmaster moves that miss, but it's even more difficult to see a move that is your opponent's idea as opposed to your own, right? Because in both of those cases with missing bishop d2 and rook a8, it wasn't like Magnus and Fabi missed the opportunity when it was in their hand. They missed the response of their opponent, which shows that even the most elite players can fall into the trap that Maurice so eloquently described in the Trevor Noah show.
It's exactly what he asked me.
Getting caught up in your own ideas.
Right, exactly what he asked me. He said, what's the most important thing you've learned from chess, or one of the most important things, and I mentioned that on the show, that you're not as important as your opponent. You're not. The other person is more important than you are because you know your own ideas. You've got them, you want to defend them, you want to prove them. Sure, great for you. But the other person is coming with their ideas as well. And you have to play both sides. If I do this, what is the other person going to do? What's the best idea they're going to come up with? And if you don't seek out their best ideas, you'll just miss the moves because you're off in la-la land thinking about your great stuff you want to do. And that's the hardest part about chess is always and consistently playing for your opponent the best moves that they could possibly play. And in that case, for example, when Fabi played Bishop D2 against Magnus, he did not seek out, well, what would I do in this situation? What would be the most desperate thing for black to do here? He only saw rook takes A1 and, oh, yeah, I get my party rolling. This is good. Then rook A8 comes and he's like, oh, yeah, right. What's that about? And it's not a hard move to find. So that just shows how much he was into himself. And we're seeing that happen here as well. Magnus not seeking out every possibility that white could play to coordinate his position. And this move, Bishop D2, has got him. And he has played the move rook to D8 going down into this line. Probably thinks this is good, but it looks as though great defense now will hold this position for white.
And
So
you know, that's what I love so much about chess, that these principles, like for a kindergartner, they miss a back rank checkmate because they're not looking at their opponent's ideas. But the same exact underlying principle applies at the very highest level in the World Championship in London.
Absolutely. Well, I remember, of course, the book by Edmar Magnus, How to Beat Bobby Fischer. And Edmar looked at every loss that Bobby Fischer had. And why did Bobby Fischer ever lose a chess game? Well, the 90% of the games that Bobby Fischer lost is because he wasn't considering what his opponent was doing. He was only looking at his ideas. That was the bottom line.
How do you feel like a rewrite of that based on Magnus Carlsen would look?
Quite similar, I think. A lot of times Magnus loses games is he's overpressed. Like Fabiano himself has won some games against Magnus where Fabi was trying to make a draw and Magnus kept going, and he went over the limit, so to speak. There was one game where he was just a pawn up and lost, did Magnus. So yeah, you get caught up in what you're doing. You don't really pay attention to your opponent. I wanted to say, Maurice, about the variation that you showed. After the move rook d8, which was Magnus's move, I thought, if I was in Fabi's shoes, I wasn't looking so much at bishop e3 as I was desperate to play knight c3. And in my mind, the variation I had in mind was rook takes d3, what else? Knight check. Knight check.
You have two checks.
Oh, pardon me, knight a4 check. Knight a4 check. And I thought, well, if you move up with your king, king b5, then I got this cute move, knight c5, attacking the rook, but it also attacks the pawn on b7. And I thought, for example, rook a3, knight b7, white was out of the woods. I mean, a moment ago I was much worse. Now I feel like, okay, I got no real worries.
It's a good line as well. It just
shows
it's a good line. What happens when the knight appears into the game that white can generate this kind of play very quickly. Black's pieces still remain active, however. And
of course.
The thing is, this king looks aggressive from where it is. I would say this knight does leave a weird impression, Yaz, as something like bishop back, for example, scares me.
Oh, I'm going to return the pawn. I'm going to play knight c5, you know what I'm saying?
Right. You're going to hurry up.
Like, I'm not going to try to save the pawn or something.
But that said, this shows what happens as soon as the knight is released from prison.
Exactly.
And that bishop d2 move says, we're getting into the game, come hell or high water. This is what's going to happen.
Right.
And once that happens, then your king dominance doesn't prove anything. And what's happening also as well, we should point out, is the shrinkage of the board. When the board starts to shrink dramatically, if there's nothing extra on this side, then there's less to play for. Even if I were to lose a pawn, there's less to play for. Because it becomes a four-file game. It becomes all about this. And all this doesn't matter because the pawns have been removed from the board. You always want to have at least one pawn on both sides of the board if you're trying to win, because it just becomes that much harder to win when you reduce the board and the player only has to defend that small space, more contained. If you can stretch the defense by putting a pawn on this side, then not only you have to defend one weakness over here, you got to defend over here, and it's too much to do. You stretch them out. But this case, you remove all his pawns from this side. I remember
It's
watching,
great.
I remember the first time I saw this happen, this kind of defense happen. I watched Gadakamsky do it in Blitz in the World Open. I would say sometime in the early 90s.
Wow.
He had a Blitz game.
Okay.
And he was young, man. He was super young, right? And he played this Blitz game. It was a playoff game against someone I don't remember. I just remember what he did. And so quickly, the game that he played, he so fast understood the idea of removing the pawn. And the way he did it, too, was just so magical that when he got to removing it, I said, how do you just know that he needed to do that so quickly? And when he got there, it opened up my eyes to this type of defensive idea. And here, you see it happening. Of course, it's basic for these guys, the idea of removing anything on that side. Both variations, your variation taking knight b7, the other variation with rook b1 and rook takes b7, both of them are aimed at getting rid of this one culprit, the pawn on b7. That's the most important pawn on the board by far for black, and he needs it. He needs it somehow. Jesse had mentioned, 20 moves from now you could queen this pawn. Well, if I don't give you that pawn is off the board at all costs, then even if I have to sacrifice a pawn, even those kind of positions will be drawish. If I lose a pawn and get rid of this one and then limit you to just these 4 pawns on this side, of course I'd want also the right distribution of pieces. Don't want to be left with the wrong thing, right bishop versus knight kind of thing. That may be a problem. But this position is looking more and more like Christmas for Fabi come early, or Thanksgiving anyway.
An easy draw. Sorry, Jennifer, I've kind of lost touch a little bit with the players. What are the clock times for both players? Anybody taking too much time? Because
well, no, they both have plenty of time, considering that there were so many moves that were prepared. So they both have about 40 minutes for the next 19 moves, which, in addition to that, there's a 30-second increment. It's way too early to accuse anybody of potentially getting in the time pressure. Though, of course, it's always possible, right?
Yeah, I haven't really been paying attention as to how long Fabi's, for example,
well, in the beginning, he played it totally instantly. He
right,
clearly had it 100% prepared. The more ambiguous thing was how much did Magnus have prepared? How fuzzy was it? Was he coming up with it on his own? Was he rehashing old files? Even perhaps bluffing a bit that he didn't know it in order to unveil the really good lines. That's the kind of thing that is always really interesting.
How deep? Well, for me, how deep was the preparation? It seemed to me Fabi played this move Queen E2, a move that Jesse queried, by the way, but he played it rather quickly, followed by Queen C4.
Oh, totally instantly, those.
Yeah, Queen C4, which also looks a little bit fuzzy. Like that especially was a strange move for me. And how deep did he prepare? Because at a certain moment you stop and say, okay, I like my position. But when he did stop, it seemed that black was fine.
And we do have the move Rook D8 on the board.
We do, and we've been waiting for Fabi to make the determination of either Bishop E3 check or the move I had expected, Knight C3. And I guess he's trying to weigh which one of those two alternatives is the best. I would be anxious to bring my knight on B1 that's been laggard. It hasn't gotten into the game. The idea of jumping to the C5 square is so attractive. I would be inclined to Knight C3. By the way, just to boldly point out the obvious, Knight C3, do not take this pawn. That would be a huge mistake because after the move Rook, a B1 pinning the knight to the queen, the knight to the king, you don't want to walk into any pins like this.
Talk about not paying attention to the other person's idea.
Exactly.
And what about King C5? Then
then
just
King
Bishop
C5.
E3 check, and suddenly there's no good square.
Or Knight A4 check.
Or Knight A4 check once again, and the bishop and the rook. So
either way, we're picking up the piece.
Don't be thinking about taking. I don't leave my pawns on pre for nothing. You can take the one on D3, but don't take the one on B4. And once again, Maurice, you can help me determine which is the. I don't know if King B5 is the right move. By the way, this looks like White's out of the woods.
It doesn't matter after Knight A4 check. The fact that your knight's landing on C5 by force. Rook takes D3.
Rook takes D3. Just like if you go back with the king, I'm going to Knight C5 and
on any
move.
And you're guarding also the B3 square, so there's no Rook B3 to harass you in any way, shape, or form.
There's no rook b3. I am attacking the rook.
And somehow I feel like if Christian's watching now, he's not as he's not as worried.
Just go back. Look at this position.
I'm taking that pretty piece away.
Let's take a picture of this position in our minds. No, go forward. Go forward.
Sorry.
I just want the audience take a picture with that king on c7.
Yes, please.
And the knight on c5.
Yeah.
Right? Let's take a picture of that position in our minds.
Versus the one that's on our board right now.
I want you to leave that one up for a second.
I will.
Just leave that one up for a second, right? So you got that one. Look at that knight on c5.
It's Thor.
Right? Look at that king on c7. Now, I want to go back to a position. Look at my board. We're going to go now to my board.
Yeah.
Leave that one. Now, look. The king's on c7. We have the pieces the same.
Exactly.
The difference we have now is a rook on d3, that diagram I just showed you.
Right.
And the knight on c5.
Right.
Right? Well, the bishop is back on d2, where it's cool. So that's a small difference. That's a gigantic difference. How did that happen? In just a couple of moves, you get a knight here and a rook here, but this rook that's not doing anything, and this knight that was the bad piece is a monster on c5. That's the difference.
Right.
So we could jockey back and forth. As a matter of fact, let me play another move instead. This move. Let's get this. Well,
remember
let's get this
you
position.
had king b6 on the board.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to get the position. I'm just going to make. Look how many tempi I gained. By the way, I'm going to make some random move and then play it like this. Okay, this is similar, right? I want to put the bishop back. This is similar. This is losing,
with the
of course.
rook on
But
hanging.
let's leave this position. Now go from this position and make the point. Switch back to your board.
Yeah.
Like remember this board and switch back. The same thing virtually. I got a pawn on h6 in mine. Right? That's the only difference. I got a pawn on h6. But look what our knight has done. It's magically transformed itself to the c5 square. It's a beast. It's happy.
Right.
And so this is not acceptable for Magnus in any way, shape, or form. This means Fabi has solved the problem. So knight c3, I really like. Bishop e3 is more forcing, but knight c3 also begs all the questions. I got my knight out, and what can you do about it?
Right.
Looks like nothing.
That knight on b1 was in the barracks just waiting to get into the battle. And in the scenario that I've got on my board with that knight on c5, suddenly going from doing absolutely nothing on b1.
He was in the basement.
Yeah.
He was locked in the basement.
to being this great piece on c5.
Now he's grazing on green pastures. Whole difference.
It's all the difference in the world, and any disadvantages are now comfortably behind Fabi.
I'd say that knight is now on Team Fabi.
Exactly. It's pulling its weight.
It's funny because as soon as Jesse Kraai got, he was bemoaning that night for the hour in between the opening stage and Maurice filling in for him. He was just crying about that night.
Yeah, why couldn't we
accusing it of so many violent crimes?
Right. Why couldn't we invite him back to the show now that he has something to talk about? Because
I'm
like
so
you
happy
said,
I came in with
yeah.
It's
You guys
all about
switched.
you.
You switched at the perfect time.
You're the lucky charm, kind of like Gary in game one.
Yeah.
Dealing with the bad pieces, as we know, bad pieces. One bad piece can spoil an entire chess position, and you want to improve your horrible pieces. You don't want to try to be active without the whole army coming into play. Certainly, we work as a team through the chess pieces. There's so many principles that we could talk about. When as I mentioned, Trevor Noah had asked me that important question about what do you learn from chess, and that's another one of those great principles. I have to say, though, I really want to promote his book more than ever, Born a Crime. It is a book you absolutely want to buy. Look at this autograph that he wrote in the book that I gave to him. He said, "To Maurice, may all your children be legal." That was a bit of a shock.
Referring to his own experience in apartheid South Africa.
Yes, indeed.
Where he was born a criminal.
He was born a crime, born a criminal, indeed. His family had been the ones who would get arrested
because
on
of
this
mixed
behalf,
race.
because he was mixed race, and his mother was a black Xhosa woman, and his father a Swiss German. And they were not allowed to mix back in 1980s South Africa before Mandela was released. And there was literally 5 years in prison for mixing. 5 years in prison if you were caught mixing the races.
Wow.
And the father had to walk across the street. When they went outside, the father had to walk across the street. His father had to walk across the street from the family, and his mother had to hire a colored woman, a mixed woman, to walk with them, hire her as the nanny, but actually pretend that she, the black woman, was the nanny, while the woman she hired was the mother. so that the people would believe that, okay, that's his mom, the one who's mixed,
Right.
and the other one's a nanny because she's not supposed to, she couldn't possibly be the mother of this boy, this mixed boy.
What a story.
That's, I mean, an incredible story. Now, I'm saying that sounds quite sad, but the rest of the book is hilarious. The guy's a comedian after all, and it is so fun and funny to read. When I gave it to my mom to read, she had visited me back in June. All I heard in the room was guffawing from my 77-year-old mother. I went in there, you all right? She said, he's crazy. Such a fun, funny book. Definitely worth the read. I'll give you a refund if you don't like this book, or I got to first check your psychological profile if you don't like this book and you buy it. It is such a good book to read.
You sold me, Maurice, and I'm a fan of Trevor. And what I like about that inscription is it kind of reminds me of his style, which is very funny, but there's like an important point behind the humor.
Exactly.
You know, that we always got to be watchful about our current, our current situation and making sure that there's not injustice and that we're attacking it when it's there. So beautiful job on the show, and beautiful inscription by Trevor Noah, who I'm sure you've converted to chess.
Yeah.
He's on Team Fabi, right?
I actually didn't have to convert him to chess. He loves chess.
He
does play.
That's
I was
true.
busting
He
his
did say
chops in the clip that you can find online right now. But he loves chess already. He was serious. He played chess in high school, and he really enjoys it. He just, he just had to make fun of it for the Daily Show. When he actually made fun of it when Jon Stewart was the host of the Daily Show, and he came on as a senior correspondent. So it was what it was. And pretty funny. That clip is funny too, by the way, making fun of chess. But I had to bust his chops. Come on.
Of course.
You can't just be making fun of our game like that.
By the way,
all press is good press.
Fabi has made the more, I would say, incisive,
forceful move. Bishop E3 check is on the board.
Knight C3, I've been so anxious to bring that knight into the game. I couldn't wait for the opportunity to play Knight C3.
Hold your horses.
Well, indeed. But Fabi did play Bishop E3 check. And Maurice, you gave a variation that went with the king to B5. Right. That turned out to be nothing. What about if Magnus dropped back with his
How
king?
ridiculous would that be, though? You just played king B6.
I know.
You let me play Bishop D2 and Bishop E3. Thank you very much. For
I lost
free moves.
Two, and the rook's not better on D8 than it was on A8. So, but okay, I'm taking. I mean, sometimes you make a mistake. You got to take.
Okay, but now what if I play Rook C1? Given you can't just give people free moves.
Right.
Rook
So
C1,
Rook C1
let me threaten B5.
Threatens B4, B5, and you're forcing me to move my king yet again.
Pointing out that if B5 happens now,
pardon me.
instead, then now we can play Knight C3 and smile.
Yeah, because now you're tickling my pawn, which is why I had to drop. Boy, talk about wasting a lot of energy.
There's a lot of time wasting went on in that line. I mean, there's no way you're going to feel badly if you're.
Well, at the moment, I'm still recovering a pawn, right? Because there are two white pawns hanging, and even though white is a pawn ahead, the knight's still on B1. So, how would the line continue from these parts?
I'm just checking variations now. What if B5?
Yeah, okay, that does, of course, get the, attacks the knight. The knight was about to capture the pawn, so you return the favor.
So what do you feel about this position? It doesn't feel...
I don't know. At the moment, I don't feel that this is as equal as a moment ago. I had the knight on C5, and I was kind of feeling good about myself. Here, maybe the jury's out. Unless there's some really cute move like D4, perhaps.
And then Bishop F4 check?
Yeah, where maybe, like the king, for whatever reasons, finds itself...
Yeah, but King A7, and you still need to get the knight out to cause me... Oh, you're saying Bishop C7, but you still need to get the knight out to
I need to play Rook A1, and it's not even... It's not a checkmate. Yeah, it's not a checkmate, but,
Hold on, back up. So, in this position, Knight E1...
Oh, okay, so...
Knight Edgar 1, right.
Another retreating move.
Yes,
Another hard-to-find retreating move.
So now the
Man,
problem
you
is
still,
that if
haven't-
knight d3, there's rook d1, right?
Knight takes d3, there is rook d1.
And then we to continue the variation, there's still bishop c4.
Knight a3.
And then
now
there's
knight a3 is the end,
Looks
huh?
like winning.
Well, because too many.
Now you're desperate, actually. You have to play bishop a2, it looks like.
Bishop a2 tactically saving the day.
Yeah, but
So,
okay, but
that's
I
not-
don't have to.
You're going to have to give up all your good pieces at that point. Knight takes d3, bishop takes b3, rook b1.
That's not the variation
That's-
that I was really aiming for when I stepped into this.
That's funny, though, because knight e1 does kind of complete the trio. Speaking of which, the retreating moves, rook a8, bishop d2, and now knight e1.
Right.
And knight is supposed to be the even the most difficult
Yes,
retreating move to
absolutely.
see.
Retreating
putting
moves are
everything on
very
the-
high-level moves, the retreating moves. And now you haven't retrieved your pawn as yet.
No, it's
and
still
a lot to prove.
Yeah, it's a funny variation. It's a peculiar situation where I can't take on d3. I guess. What should I do? Should I make a move? I don't know. Let me just put a move rook d7 on the board, so at least I have a threat. My threat is now to capture the pawn. I'm just a little concerned that unless Fabi gets this knight b1 into the game, well, I don't know, Maurice. This looks like compensation, but with
Okay, the knight
king,
is threatening to come into the game. Rook d1, let's just guard the pawn. What
Rook
is happening here? Bishop c4 a move?
Let's just guard the
Bishop
pawn.
Bishop c4 looks like knight a3 is coming.
Okay. Bishop c4 you mentioned as being met by the move knight a3. Then there is now going to be a pin whenever I capture on d3. Well, okay. I don't know what to say.
Well,
What is
and
the
I know
current-
you're a pawn grubber, yeah. So,
I'm trying. I'm doing my best.
No, what I'm saying is White's the one who's up a pawn.
Oh, for
so
sure.
you're playing with compensation there, and I know you're a
Right.
pawn grubber, so being up a pawn I know suits you nicely.
Right.
And being down a pawn doesn't. And if you
Yeah.
can't get that pawn back, then you're only speaking compensation and nothing more.
Well, I was thinking that the pawn compensation was far more clear when Black had played the move b5, and there was a black rook on the a file.
Oh yeah, that
was
clear. But you're talking about dropping the king back now.
Yeah.
And that move, bishop e3 check,
which is
highlighting this king swinging back and forth. There is no way the world champion plays moves like that if he doesn't have to, because he'll be very aware of the fact that he will have wasted
He'll have wasted so much time. Yeah.
and he's going to be sitting there going, really? You know what? This other line might be drawing, but I'm not going to play this bogus line where I lost 2 moves.
Exactly.
I'd be stunned to see king c7 land on the chessboard.
Jennifer, what did he play after bishop e3? What did Magnus do?
Well, you can update your board over
Okay.
there. 'Cause it
Oh,
looks like
sorry.
we got a few moves.
Okay, let me do that. Let me update my board. I switch back
He's
and
going
forth.
straight into the forcing line.
Oh, he did go king
There is no
b5.
way he was playing king c7. That's just
Knight
2 temp he
c3.
lost. This
Okay,
just doesn't
so
make sense.
this was this whole variation that you had showed us quite some time ago already, Maurice, that you mentioned after rook d5.
Rook b1 check, right?
Check. King came to c3 in your line. Rook takes b7. Rook captured here. Then after king f1, you were explaining why White was really, really pleased, because he has no ugly pieces. There's no knight on b1. Although he's a pawn down, that's only temporary. White has 2 threats. He has a threat of rook f7 as well as rook c7, attacking this knight and pinning that knight to the king, and that everything was fine suddenly, just like that. Everything had shifted. There was
What does
no
Black do
issues.
here? Does he do what if he does e4? Can we just take on f7?
If he does the
no,
move
right? Because after e
e4,
takes f3, you're threatening mate. So we have to choose a different option.
Well, I like that knight to g5 move, because it reinforces every threat that White has, including rook c7, which I think is the one you really got to pay attention to, because that might cost you a piece.
By the way, knight g5 is good there. And now I'm just loving learning as we watch. But I'd like to talk about
maybe king c3 is
No,
wrong.
let's
Sorry.
go forward, please. King c3.
Oh, please. Yeah, king c3.
I'd like to talk about this. You know, when you watch high-level players, you want to learn something from them. And looking at this position here, the move e4 was it e4, and you played knight g5, right? So e4.
I did.
What about a move like knight e4 play, please?
All right.
And what about knight e1, also?
Knight e1 attacking the rook. That's a devilish tickle.
Just to realize, since we're now learning about retreating moves so much, since it's being played so often, knight g5, of course, is a good move. But to point out, knight back is an idea here.
A very good one.
Also works as well. But let's change this and go forward. Step into this line. Back up. And then this moment after, go back, just a couple of moves to rook d5. This moment here.
Oh, yeah.
The move knight d8.
That's good. Because then after rook c7 check, we can take with the king.
Exactly.
So
Another moment.
That's the right move order.
Guarding the pawn on f7, and the d pawn is dropping now. Legitimately so.
That's a good move by Magnus.
Mm-hmm.
And
Did
now
it get
what do
played?
we do?
Did
No,
it get?
no,
there's still. Oh, they're almost there. So he's
Well,
going to take
White
b7 next. It's very easy to imagine that Fabio overlooked this move.
Whoa. Look, I'm a pawn grubber in the family over here. We only have a room on set for one pawn grubber. But that king on d3 could get checkmated.
It easily could.
Oh,
and so now,
oh, let's show some mating line.
Yes.
King f1,
King f1, and e4 allows the retreating move.
But
knight
checkmate.
e1 mates. So incredible how knight retreats, bishop retreats. They're popping up constantly in this game, the retreating game, if you will. All these variations, just absolutely incredible.
I love the move E4, guys.
So
this is an E4
this
knight
is
E1.
teaching us
Fabi
a lot
strikes
about
the first
retreating
blood
moves.
in the match.
Right.
And what are the odds of that happening?
That's not going to happen.
Very, very, very doubtful. But if you
Okay.
don't do it, by the way, there are still. Okay, this is not a mate, but you're going to end up being forced to sacrifice a rook.
Wait, why there? You can play king f5.
Oh shoot!
More retreating moves.
I apologize.
So wait. So wait. After h6,
Well, I don't know if h6 is the best move. I missed.
I like
king
g4. G4 looks so sneaky.
So we're threatening knight e1 and rook c4 winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same as.
Same principle, right?
I'm also threatening knight e1, king e4, king e2, threatening f3, mate.
Correct.
And,
Ooh.
and if
So
we,
even though black
we
is
play
the
king
one
e4,
upon up, there's some tactical issues.
Oh yeah, and if we play king e4 here, you have
King
knight
e2?
Oh, just king e2.
I've got ideas of knight
no, wait. Knight e1.
And rook takes b7 was played, it looks like.
Okay.
We're going to see that
So
in a
we're
second,
expecting.
and now,
Okay, so hold on. So this is the current position. We've just seen rook takes b7. Here we're expecting this very sneaky retreating move, knight d8, which sidesteps this pinning sequence that began with rook c7, defends the pawn on f7, right?
Well, we're saying that's possible, but I'm going to tell you,
never possible. But
you
probable.
think it's probable?
Sure.
With the king on d3, you think Magnus
Well, I'm
is
not
gonna allow
saying
that
that
position?
king takes d3 is, but I'm saying, okay, hold on. What do you think black's best move is then? I think knight d8 is probably black's best move right now.
Even the best move, you're saying, like don't play rook d3 right away, because it's
Right,
maybe
because
worse
rook
for him.
takes d3, king f1, and even though black is a pawn up, white is getting it right back.
King f1. Wait, is knight? What happens on knight d8 here? It's bad because of.
I don't know. Just a second. Knight d8. You could do that for sure. Check.
That's normal.
King has to find a square, right?
And then maybe knight g5 happens.
Knight g5 could be happening.
Even king e2 happens as well, but knight g5 looks.
King e2 is on tap. Well, I mean, if I win
White's
this
not
pawn on
worse.
f7,
White's not worse at all.
White's for choice.
Yeah, white's for choice.
So, exactly here.
But if you're saying knight d8, let's go. Knight d8, rook
Okay.
c7 check. If you have to play king takes, on d3, and allow king f1.
then there's a lot of complicated variations you got to calculate with black.
And black is clearly not winning.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the pawn up. Black is not winning.
Well,
Black
maybe
is,
he won't choose the knight d8 line. Did we have to do
that's
that?
what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Yaz. If you're saying that this is the best line,
Okay, just
how
a
does
second.
how does Black get out of this
Okay,
position?
let's see.
Let's
Bishop
equalize.
F6. Okay, so I'm going to stop knight g5 and say, go ahead, complete your threat.
G4.
G2, G4. Okay. Man, oh man. Okay, my clock is ticking. I got to make a move quickly. Rook
Actually,
d6.
you're opening the d5 square for your king.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to zig
Wiggle out.
and zag my way home. Yeah,
What happens
you're
on
like
knight e1 check and rook c5, or maybe rook c5 first?
Knight e1 check and rook c5. So you're still. I'm sorry, that was a mouse slip, of course. So you're still trying to set up a checkmating
I'm a
threat.
tempo short. I need my king e2 and f3 to do what I want.
I think I've got.
Yeah, your knight coming back to e6 is going to be
All right,
a
so what do I
problem.
need to do? No, let's go in that line. It looks
sorry?
reasonable. Knight e1 check, king e4.
Okay, I am trying to slalom my way home.
My knight would have to be
was
on
zigzag,
F4,
now it's slither.
You know, yeah. Well, I mean,
But wait,
lizard
your
style.
bishop. I also had the idea of g5 at some point. I mean, your bishop will go back. But where does my knight belong in this line?
Well, let's see. This is basically the key moments right here. I liked.
And knight
I
d8
like
was
what
played, by the way.
Which was played?
Knight d8 on the board, as we might see some pretty exciting variations.
Wow.
Because
on the board after rook c7
So
check.
this is the current position, and we're
That's
expecting
right.
rook c7 check, king takes d3 by Magnus, giving him a pawn edge, but we're thinking king f1 and 3 results possible.
Listen, this is
Yes,
a
please.
4-file board. Again,
4-file board.
This,
Got
this,
it.
Okay, maybe
Everything's on the
it's
king
five files,
side
but
and center.
As far as the pawns are concerned, if I'm white, I'm feeling like I'm very close to a draw. Very close.
Absolutely.
Like this is not a losing position. We now have a situation with this position where there's 4 pawns. We're looking at concrete lines. We're looking at mating attacks. Could we actually win? But white can also be very realistic and say, wait a second. What is your winning plan? How does black actually proceed to win this game? Like what is...
He's got to get his king back.
His king has probably got to be here.
Right.
Right? I mean, talk about retreating.
Yeah.
That's probably what he needs to do.
Right.
And he has to start there so he can start bringing his knight into the game. Now, even with all that means he has to play something like 8-6 because we're going to have knight g5 when that happens. So even with all those multiple moves that you've got to play, even then, what's your winning plan? Because you still have 4 against 3. Your passed pawn is this one.
Right.
Potentially, right? And you're not necessarily tying me down. I'm very active right now. So I don't feel, I just don't feel like I'm going to lose this game.
Oh,
It
the
feels like
danger is not there for another 20 moves. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, well, this guy's the winning guy. He's got to get through so much stuff to
it's
get
20.
going, to make this 4 against 3 work. He's got to deal with all the rank issues. And I have done nothing. I'm just named to everything he has to do, and me not defending at all. And first of all, it's even a question whether or not you could get your knight, your king all the way back home, because I'm going to try to keep it where it is. And if I get a move like this in, this pawn formation becomes stultified on this side for a long time to come. That's not going to be easy for you to make any advances with a pawn sitting on this square. Of course, this pawn could become a weakness as well, but this is not feeling like a loss anymore. I mean, this just feels like white has full compensation for the sacrifice with a knight sitting back on d8. Now, it's surprising Fabi is thinking right now. That's a bit of a surprise to me.
After the move knight d8.
And it may suggest that he missed knight d8 when he went to this position. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we're overstating this retreating concept of missing backward moves. But the fact that we don't have a move right now when rook c3 looks, rook c7, excuse me, looks like the only move with the king on c3 giving a check, may suggest, as we're in this position, that he didn't see the move. Nevertheless, positional principles say this is fine for white. I mean, no way white should be worse here, or worried about losing. Let's put it that way, worried about losing. And Magnus will have to be careful about the little dancing mates that are being looked at, although I don't think he's going to fall for any of them.
Oh, no, I don't see any dangers either for white. Personally, I think that this king on d3 is far more of a target. So yeah, I see this as 3 results, not that white has to instantly play for a draw with some move like knight g5 in order to restore material equality with knight takes f7. I think that
Sorry, by the way,
please.
now I just look back at the engine to see what it thinks. And you're not going to believe this, but in the position after King F1, in this position, King F1, H6 is a blunder. And G4 is better for white. The engines are screaming, G4, and you better give me back the pawn immediately with knight to E6.
Because
And they're insisting that H5 is actually the right move here.
To stop G4.
To stop G4 itself. So we should look at this line after G4.
Okay.
What other move could we play? I mean, let's play your bishop F6. And
By
notice
the
the engine now.
By the way, we do have Rook C7 and King D3
Rook C7,
on the
King
board.
D3 played. And now check. Oh, well, that's the line. The check, King here. And what did you did Rook D6 before, didn't you?
Well, yes.
In this position, you did this move.
I was trying to make room for the king, that's right.
And now the engine gives bishop to C5 as the right move.
Whoa.
Forcing your rook. Ooh, your rook has a problem.
Okay.
There's a little file problem.
Then if we were to play
Rook
C6, just trying to deal
and
with
now
tactically.
Rook C6,
Rook D7
Rook check. Where do you put this joker? Well, it's already clear, right? Your F7 is going to drop.
Exactly.
This bishop's going to leave, and F7 is going to drop. Your knight is going to hang.
Exactly.
You're going to start
Right, that's
dancing.
the problem. Okay.
Right.
So now you got some real problems here. So already, after King F1, Magnus has to be really careful and play. This is not the only move. This is the other move. But now white is just perfectly fine. The activity favors white.
Wow, well, this game is
after
certainly
the move
giving us
King F1.
excitement after the queen trade, yes.
This is one of this game feels like a real game at last.
World Championship
this
game.
This is what it's all about. Yeah,
Rook
I feel
C7
good
check.
about this.
Rook
this
C7
game a
check,
lot.
King takes D3. You feel good about it because it's a great game, and you
For
also
both
feel
players.
good about it for Team Fabi.
Well, just everything about the game, from, I think, the very courageous decision to play B4, stop this repetition of bishop takes C6. I think the players were exploring some real original ground, and you know, they've been mixing it
King
up.
F1 played, by the way, and let's put it on the
King
board one more
F1.
time, just for the fans. E4, go for it, Yaz.
Yes.
Checkmate.
Oh.
Checkmate, Magnus.
Right. Does your little one recognize checkmate yet?
Oh yeah. I taught him how to say checkmate, Magnus.
Okay. Okay.
No, normally he says checkmate, Abba.
Okay. All
You
right.
know, I
all
have
right.
to tell you, the points you guys made is so important. It's wonderful to watch players of this caliber play. It's like when you watch the computers play in those tournaments that they have, the World
Computer Championships.
Championships. And they do stuff, and you're like, "What's that about?
Yeah.
What's that about?" And some of it is so cryptic that you can't understand it for 15 moves why they made a move.
Right.
And it's you learn as you watch. You learn as you watch these top level games. And when you watch a game like this one, now you're not going to produce this kind of struggle every single game, unfortunately. Or maybe they'll coast. Finally, they're in form, and they'll both start playing this 28-30, 28-50 level chess. But when you get to watch it and go, oh, look at that idea. Oh, look at that idea. This is what the people who love classical chess love the most, is the ability to sit down and really sink into a game and look at the ideas deeply and appreciate point by point. Fans like myself who really would love to look forward to seeing more rapid time controls, more tournaments like that being played, don't want to kill this kind of tournament, this kind of event, where you can also enjoy the juiciness, and you can look and you can learn and you can analyze these nuances. And they're playing like solid 2800s right now. High-level chess, yeah, I sack a pawn here, sack a pawn there. I sacked the pawn first, you sack it back. You got comp. Is it a mate? Oh, watch out, because I've got these nuanced ideas. Just simply good stuff to appreciate at this high level.
I don't know about 2,700. I bet you the cap score on this game is off the charts, Yaz.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
this
said
is
2,800 by the way.
Stockfish. This is stockfish level, Yaz.
As Yoga Bira would say, you could observe a lot just by watching. By the way, I want to make this point, and I really emphatically, Fabi is the one who's playing like the highest rated player in the world, and Magnus is playing like he's the second highest rated player in the world.
Really?
Yeah, do you see the TPRs of the players?
Oh, got it.
Funny.
Well, first there's
Thank you. Finally, my humor is being
I love it.
appreciated.
CPR is tournament performance rating, by the way. And of course, Fabi is
totally
performing
the
higher
mirror.
because he's drawing against the higher rated player.
Another example of how unbiased we are here.
Correct.
Let's go to break, Yaz, but let's keep that position after E4 91 on the screen.
No,
I'm
you.
just kidding.
No, please.
Thank you
I'm
for
kidding.
joining us. This was Today in Chess Show. We have demonstrated that there is a checkmate in the position. Just one
yeah.
move away from checkmate.
And
Come on,
there are
Fabi, you can do it.
You can do it. And there are a few variations like that. We know Magnus is going to dig deep and look for the best defense. We're going to be back with more from what's turning out to be a very exciting endgame in Caruana Carlsen.
You may have heard about St. Louis's world-class museums. Art, history, science, even magic. But you may not know we have an entire museum dedicated to play, with a 10-story slide and a Ferris wheel on top. Don't let all this family fun slide by you. Whose kids it is? St. Lou is always exploring. Anybody?
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second-best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University.
Hello, and we are back. And Game 5 of the World Chess Championship between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen has again been drawn, as we saw, actually just an incredibly well-played game, yes?
Absolutely.
Really
When we went to break,
brilliant
we were
defense by Magnus.
Seriously.
And brilliant counter defense by Fabi.
All the way down the line. When we went to break, we saw this position, King F1. Maurice and I, we had been discussing it. Maurice was mentioning there's absolutely one crucial move that Black has to play. Did Magnus find it? Yes, he did. He played this very, very important move, H5. And just when we were on break, all of these very, again, high precision moves were all just made one after the other. And sometimes, Maurice, you just sit back and tip your hat and say, dude, you played really well. This was just a great game.
Dude, you did too.
Dude it? You did?
Respect.
You did too?
That's
Respect.
the word. Respect. Put some respect on their names.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about
Right.
in this one, as both of them showed that they are indeed the two best players in the world. Magnus sniffed out that danger to his king and said, no, I'm not getting mated. You must be joking. I get the fact that you have enough counterplay in this position to easily counterbalance that pawn edge that I had, and so he just quickly flung his king back, home, safe, no dangers, and of course, he had to give back a pawn in order to do that, and that position ended in a draw. So this, to me, I mean, you've got to be saying, if you are Fabi, I'm with this guy. I'm with this guy. I mean, of course, the tension is building, but Fabi's got to have some confidence that I can hang. I mean, clearly, we've drawn the majority of our games, and we continue to draw. I am indeed equal to you, at least. You remember Fabi before this match, he said, point blank, I think it's a 50-50 match. I think it's 50-50.
I thought it was pick-em.
Anybody who said Magnus in a cakewalk, Magnus is much stronger, if you're a Fabi fan, Fabi was very objective. He said, I think it's 50-50.
Right.
And it's going to come down to the nerves. Now, as this builds, some people might say we need a win, but to me, a friend of mine, I'm going to give a shout out to Kim Smoot, because she said, this is like the Powerball.
Okay.
Nobody's winning, but the tension's rising.
Right.
And someday, somebody's going to win.
Right.
And it's going to be a big deal when that person wins. So this is like the Powerball. It is increasing in tension game by game by game, and who has the nerves to win in this, what could come down to a lottery situation, because right now we don't know what's going to happen, but somebody's going to score eventually.
But this was one of my favorite games in the match, because what you're seeing humans achieve perfection. I mean, they're coming so close to just becoming perfect, and it looks so easy when you watch, but the amount of preparation and life planning that goes into being able to be an example of perfection at the board.
Looked easy?
It started from
easy? That didn't look easy at all.
Well, if you're looking at it at home and you just see that there's these 20 good moves in a row, okay,
Right.
20 good moves in a row. But what goes behind those 20 moves in a row is 20 years of dedication to the craft.
Absolutely.
In every way, physically, mentally, preparation, travel. In the case of Fabi, this moving to Europe where there were great tournaments, moving back to live in St. Louis when this emerged as the capital of chess in America.
Exactly.
It's almost like everything was scripted perfectly to put these men.
Great parents on your
position.
side.
Wonderfully supportive
Great family.
parents,
Everything. This is the ideal conditions for creating chess automatons. Is what we're looking at right now. These two are playing like machines, which is an argument people have about chess, by the way. Maybe they're getting so good. What did we see in Norway chess? So many draws, very few wins. We saw the Sinkfield Cup, even less wins. Hate to say it, but it's what happened. Now we're seeing in this match a lot of draws. The top players don't lose so easily. Very, very difficult to defeat each other. And we have these two super duper grandmasters at work, and it's just hard to land a punch. He had his chance in game one for the knockdown. But I come from a fight family. My sister, a world champion boxer, my brother, a world champion kickboxer, actually 5 titles for my sister, 2 for my brother. And one thing I learned from them, you don't want to be knocked down. You don't want to be the first to go hit that floor. And that's what we're seeing right now. Guys looking at each other, ducking and dodging, bobbing and weaving. He missed the punch chance in the round 1, but now 4 rounds later, They're just showing, they're looking at each other, maneuvering for weakness, going all out, but both sides showing they know how to duck and dodge and not get hit. And this is good stuff right here at a high level. The fans might not like it because they want a victory, the casual fan. But as you mentioned, Jen, for the ones who like pristine play and amazing technique, this is the good stuff.
I can see you are the underachiever in the family, the black sheep there, Maurice. You're going to have to do better than just become an international grandmaster, you know? I mean,
I'm a failed grandmaster.
Your siblings are just holding it over you, lording it over you.
They're world champions. They always have that.
When Thanksgiving comes around, you're just keeping a low profile, aren't you, over there, my friend?
Well, we are going to be on the air this Thanksgiving.
They're a little jealous of the Trevor Noah appearance, so I got that on them for now.
Okay, very good. That was a good one.
I mean, and Trevor complimented your biceps, Maurice. That's got to feel good.
It's a lot of hard work and
a lot of
hard work going into those biceps.
But everything you were saying, Jen, I concur 100% with. I mean, this was a great game. I mean, again, for the chess purists, we're in our element. This was great play by both players. They made it look easy, but they had some really awkward and difficult decisions both players had to make. And the fact that we stand deadlocked after 5 bodes for a great match. And I always thought it was a great match. Those people that kept predicting Magnus as the victor were really giving him the edge because of the tie breaks.
Right.
That was
and it
why
may still
he
be
was
the reality, by the
right.
way. The people who give him the edge because of the tie break still give him the edge because of the tie break. So they're
Right.
saying, keep this up and see what happens, right? It may be that a volcanic eruption is going to happen.
And we get winds all over the place.
No, I mean in terms of Fabi, that he's actually setting the seeds of this volcanic eruption on himself. Because, yeah, you keep tying, you keep drawing, you keep drawing, you keep drawing, and the pressure's building, and the pressure's building. And suddenly you get to game 12, and it's still tied, and Magnus goes, oh, baby, now I'm going to show you where I'm much stronger than you are. And that might be a problem for Fabi. If you argue that the classical portion will be tied and continues to be tied, there's a long way to go before then. But how do you feel if the next 7 games are drawn as well?
Well, to
could
give a
have fantastic
contrary-
games, but then what?
But to give a contrary viewpoint, as Yasser said at the beginning, I think that a lot of Team Fabi fans have things to be happy about, like the fact that he got through those first few round jitters.
That's right.
So I think perhaps it's a wash. Like if you thought that the match, whatever you thought the match was in terms of odds going into it, I'm not sure that it's very.
Got to recalibrate a little bit after 5.
A little bit.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Not for the tie-break people, folks.
No, those guys are. Those guys.
If you ask Nakamura, for example, straight up, like, are you going to change your mind now? He's going, I'm actually happier now.
Yeah.
You're affirming what I said.
Right.
That it's not about this part, it's 50-50 this part. What I believe is that the rapid games and the blitz games are going to be crushing in Magnus's favor.
Although I don't think Naka said that exactly.
So the people, Naka, he did.
Well, Naka's
he was
point
just saying he was rooting for.
When he was interviewed by you.
Yeah, I had him in the chair. I had him in the chair.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
about. I'm talking about time.
Yes. I had him in the chair, and he said it more than once, as a matter of fact. He says the victor is going to be Magnus, big time, 80%, because of rapid and blitz. And so anybody who believes that thinks this is great what's happening for Magnus. This is fantastic. And Magnus can just sit back and say, okay, I'll keep trying for the win, but if it comes to it, we're going to get to rapid and blitz. I'm going to get 4 rapid games, and you're not beating me in 4 rapid games. So I think that is a danger to think about. Now, if you're Fabi, you can't be lacking in confidence in those rapid games. You got to think, I don't care if we go to rapid, I'm still going to get you there too, or I might get you there.
Well, that was one very interesting thing, Maurice, in the interview with Grandmaster Christian Carrilla, that I wasn't really expecting, because Fabi's had such a standout year of so many classical tournaments. I always thought like the Blitz and Rapids, they might not be as memorable, but he said the big confidence boost was not all of his victories, for instance, in Norway, tying for first in the Singfield Cup, but it was actually that exhibition match against Grisha.
Where he came back.
That was the confidence boost, because he was considered the underdog in that match playing against the Blitz legend Grishuk, and he got it done. And remember, that was 0 increment and 0 delay. So that's where you would say somebody like Grishuk would have the biggest edge.
Right.
So Christian just says, Fabi, super confident, and that it all started here in St. Louis with that victory.
Not bad.
You know what Magnus's confidence booster is? winning every rapid and blitz event.
Tying for first in the
come on. I mean,
being number 1 in the world for 10 years.
In rapid, but I'm talking rapid and blitz.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. He's the world blitz champion right now.
Right.
He missed out on becoming the world rapid champion as Anand had a fantastic event. And when that guy comes in second in any of those events, he's like, what?
Yeah.
How dare you come ahead of me, right? That's what his confidence has been built up over years and years and years at rapid and blitz. So we're all hopeful for Fabi, right? We're definitely rooting and we're hoping he'll be able to fight back. But be very clear, Magnus is the best rapid and blitz player on the planet, bar none, no question. He's awesome. So Fabi, yes, playing well right now and proving his equal at the moment in classical chess and may prove it in the next 7 games. But that rapid and blitz is going to be advantage Magnus no matter what. And we will tell the story as an upset. If Fabi beats him in rapid and blitz, it will be an upset. It won't be like, oh yeah, that was a normal thing to happen.
Yeah.
Maurice, to state the obvious, we've got the gauntlet now for Team Fabi. If Fabi gets through this, that'll be awesome because we've got game 6 and 7.
Exactly. He'll have 2 whites for Magnus.
That's right.
Back to back.
And it's a very sweet situation for Fabi if he does get through that because remember, he's ending the tournament with a white, with a match.
He ends the match with a white.
He ends the match with a white. So this is like the go time for Magnus.
Right.
Can he be the first one to really get something with white? Because nobody has done it so far.
Exactly.
Get more than a little something.
Well, one thing I really did want to pull back on and just a shout out to our audience. We are really living in a golden age of chess right here, right now. We've got the World Championship match going on in London. We've got the Women's World Championship going on in Russia. We've just had this fantastic Shenzhen tournament. We've had a world champion from Illinois, the
Raj Chennareddy, yes. Congratulations.
And here in St. Louis, here at the St. Louis Chess Club, we've just finished our Winter Classics. These were 2 10-player tournaments. And let's take a look at the finals of Group A, Jennifer.
Well, what a star-studded field, yes.
All of these grandmasters, the whole field is grandmasters.
Quesada Perez, congratulations. Winning in this field by 2 points.
Wow.
That's huge. Look at some of these names. Jeffrey Zhang, who was the star of the Isle of Man, really gaining lots of rating points and stunning us. Grandmaster Samuel Sevian.
Who, by the way, got his
grandmaster.
Who got his grandmaster title here in St. Louis at the Chess Club. So
both of these young men were born in 2000, and that means they're only 18 years old.
Okay,
so Sam and Jeffrey, and then we see Ray Robson in the field.
An Olympic gold medal team member and silver member as well.
Indeed, so just a fantastic field. Congratulations. And meanwhile, in the B group,
another 10-player round robin.
Andrasian, and that, I mean, and Mikuleski seemed like they actually tied for first in this one with 5.5. But with Zavin taking the trophy on tiebreak.
Here, I was delighted, by the way, with Victor. I mean, I was saying to him that, thank you, you make me feel young. He's the real veteran in the field, tying for first. Hey, let me get back in here. Let me talk to Tony Rich. Where's my invite? I want to throw some patties.
They call him Big Vic. And tomorrow, we got the St. Louis Invitational. The good chess just doesn't stop, Yaz.
Wow.
November 16th to 21st, that's going to be 2 10-player round robins, a $15,000 prize fund, and you can follow it on uschesschamps.com, which I'm sure you got bookmarked for the entirety of the World Championship match.
Well,
so it shouldn't be hard to find.
Well, now I do. I didn't know about this one. I was just, well, it never stops. The action just never stops.
And by the way, I want to give a big shout out to Jansaya Abdumalik, who was eliminated from the round of 8 in the Women's World Chess Championship. She gave such a performance, absolutely brilliant. She was eliminated by Maria Muzichuk, former world champion. Maria Muzichuk who is currently in the Final 4. But the tremendous match that was, I was so happy that we actually had the day off. I watched from start to finish. They had, first of all, it was the first 2 games they played. Then they went to the Rapids. Then they went to the 10+10. Then they went to the 5+3, and she was eliminated there. You could, if you just go over the games, you could not feel the excitement of move by move as she looked dead in the water only to come back and then win the game. Both times in the different tie breaks, absolutely brilliant play. She's almost 2,500. I believe she already has her 3 Grandmaster norms.
Wow.
I expect this young lady to be a Grandmaster anytime soon.
Fantastic.
She has the goods. We won't be talking about her much from this tournament on because she's been eliminated, but she deserves to get recognition.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, and
Yeah.
and she has played here before. Expect more invites because that girl's a baller. She's absolutely incredible. I think one day she will win the title. Expect her to be 2-6. If she keeps up this trajectory, she'll be a 2,600 one day because she's absolutely an incredible player.
But Maurice, not to steal any of your thunder, because I was following the exchange that you were having with Tony Rich about that match had it all because it was a 50-move rule too game.
Oh yes, right. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
and I was watching it, and when that pawn was captured on move 86, when it happened, it was a rook and knight ending, rook and knight versus rook. And when the pawn was captured on move 86, I made mental note, move 86. Now I don't know what she was able to do at that point because she's playing a blitz, a 10+10.
Right.
So she's in the mix, right? I don't know what the rule is there, but she got to a point where she made such a bad mistake she was defending great for a long time. And then she got her king in the corner, and all she had to do was just take her king right out the corner on the move, and she carried out a couple of checks that allowed the white king to dance over to set up an unstoppable mating attack.
Right.
But right at that moment, she could have, it was mate and 2 coming, she could have stopped the mate, she could have played the one move, then the check, and then block with her rook, and it's mate next move. But before she plays rook back, she can say, oops, that's my 50th move. The game is drawn. I'm claiming a draw. And the ref would have to step, arbiter would have to step in and go, yep, you got your draw before playing rook back, allowing rook takes rook mate in 1 on the 51st move. She didn't realize it. She resigned and lost that game. That's how she lost the match, which is just terrifying to think of, that she could have actually drawn that one as well. So,
and international arbiter Tony Rich confirmed that
yes,
you were right.
I had to check to see whether or not that was true, and it was absolutely right. And that, I mean,
wow,
epic, epic struggle. And again, if you go over that match, you will not feel, I was thinking about that. In classical chess, you really have to go over it. You go over it slowly. You can go over the moves afterwards. People can go over this game we just had, and they could go over it in leisure time and just go over the game. You can't do that with Rapid and Blitz. You're going to see too many mistakes. The computer's going to point out. There were small mistakes here and there, maybe even big ones. And you don't feel the clock. You don't feel the decision that had to be made, and when the person was going down to 2 seconds, and then the increment came back, and you don't feel it. You only feel it. So Rapid and Blitz are meant to be watched. Classical chess are meant to be studied, while Rapid and Blitz are meant to be watched. And you have to feel that. But to watch those games, I mean, you're just incredible. I'm going to tell you, incredible. My heart was in my throat. All the, what? Again? Oh my God. Oh, she's back. She's dead. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible play by these 2 great fighters. Give it up to Maria Muzichuk, by the way, for winning that match as well. And now we have 3 world champions, 1 current and 2 former in the finals. In the Final 4, just incredible women's world championship going on right now.
Thank you,
Indeed, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the surprise of the tournament is that all the Final 4 are favorites. Because in such a wild event, you expect that some of the underdogs to slip through the cracks, and so it almost were.
Yeah.
But still, you know, plenty of great chess to come for today in chess, including round 6 of the World Chess Championship, which is going to kick off Magnus's 2 whites in a row. So expect some psychological ploys, some thrilling openings, some great defense. That's what we've been seeing in this match. And just all around great moves by the 2 best chess players in the world, but only one can be the ultimate king. And it's getting hot in here, Yaz.
Absolutely. It's been a thrill calling this game with both of you. This, for me, was really a great game. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to Game 6 tomorrow, same time, same URL.
That's right. We're going to be at 9 a.m. local time here in St. Louis, and that's 10 a.m. on the East Coast. I'm Jennifer Shahade signing off for Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley. And thank you to our guest Grandmaster filling in for Maurice at the beginning of the show, Jesse Kraai.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, everyone.